Right, good morning everybody and welcome to the July meeting of the South Hams Exec. We've got a long agenda, so we will go straight in. Darryl, have we got any apologies?
Thank you, Leader. Good morning, everyone. We've got no apologies for today. We're expecting a full house of members. Thanks,
Excellent,
Leader.
thank you. I note that Councillor Brazil's just had to pop out on an urgent errand. He'll be back with us shortly. Okay, item 1, minutes of the meeting of Thursday the 5th of June. Members, you've had those. Any comments, questions? Can I take those then as a true record? Yeah, everyone happy? Yeah, thank you very much.
Harry, can you do that?
Okay, item 2, urgent business. Members of the exec, you will be aware that there is one item of urgent business today, which we're going to take as a part 2 item at the end of this meeting. Item 3, division of the agenda. Well, we've just discussed that. There will be a division, and that will be after item 16. Item 4, declarations of interest. In accordance with the Code of Conduct, members are invited to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests and non-registrable interests, including the nature and extent of such interests that they may have in any items to be considered at this meeting. Okay, nothing, that's fine. Thank you very much. Okay, item 5, public question time. I gather, Mr. White, we've got one public question?
We have indeed, thank you, Leader. One public question, which will be on the screens now. Thank you.
We'll do it when we get there. Mr. Grocott, good morning. You know the drill, sir. Feel free to have a seat and...
Thank you. Yeah, okay. How many people requiring affordable accommodation were housed in the year ending April 2025? How many remained on the waiting list? And what, if any, is your target figure for housing people in this current year?
Councillor O'Callaghan.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Grocott, as ever. In answer to your question, the figures are that from the 1st of April 24 to the end of March this year, 284 households were accommodated from our housing register, 94 one-bedroom homes, 127 two-bedroom, 57 three-bed and 6 4-bed, which makes, I hope, a total of 284. And the other figures that were requested this year, on the 31st of March this year, there were 846 households on the register band A to D, A being in most severe housing need. And another figure in band E, which is the lowest band. It's technically no housing need, but it means people are considered to be adequately housed. And there were 643 households in that band, in the lower band. And the year before, there had been an actual higher figure, 897 households. So the figure has gone down over the year. 897 households the previous year on the register band A to D, and 716 in band E, no housing need. So as you see, the figures have gone down. Although having said that, I should say that the figures represent a snapshot and the register does fluctuate during the year. There's no target. The target was, you asked about a target figure. No target for housing people through the register. The reletting of the housing stock depends on people leaving, and it's hard to say who's going to leave and when they're going to leave. So that's the context.
Thank you, Councillor O'Callaghan. Mr. White, there'll be a written response sent as well to Mr. Grocott. Yeah, you'll receive your written response as well, Mr. Grocott.
Thank you very much.
No problem, sir. Thank you. Okay. Right, agenda item 6 then is executive forward plan. You've got that, members. I don't know if anyone made any comments. I probably want to raise that one.
Yes.
So just so you know that there will be, coming to the September executive, there will be a report on the Kingsbridge pump track, which will give all members the opportunity to talk around that. It's a council project that does not require planning permission, and as such we are bringing it to the executive to allow for full transparency and debate. So that's coming in. Medium-term financial strategy, September, an ever-moving feast, as you would appreciate, with what we are being given, or rather not being given, from central government. So that will be coming in September. There'll also be leisure update moving to October. That will be an opportunity then for us to think about the formal constituting, I think, of the leisure group.
Can do that today.
Oh, we'll do that. We can do that today, in fact, can we? Okay, so we can do that today as part of this item.
No, when we come to the outturn report.
Okay, we're doing the outturn report. That's fine. Okay, anything else you want to cover?
Into October.
Which one's that? Sorry.
Biodiversity.
And biodiversity is moving to October as well.
So we'll publish the updated forward plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Members, have you got any questions or anything you want added, or anything you're concerned about that's not on there that you think should be on there? I mean, obviously, this report will be republished based on the amendments we've just spoken about.
Can I suggest, Leader, in view of the fact there are a number of changes, additional items, but also things moving, once we clarify that, we'll recirculate the updated full plan to the executive so everybody's clear about what's intended, and then lead members are able to have conversations separately if they think that things are not where they would like them to be.
Yes, thank you. Councillor McKay.
Thanks. You mentioned that the biodiversity decisions were going to be moved to October. Is that? I'm a bit concerned about the delay.
Can you help, Mr. Powell? Which of the reports is that?
I think we're just taking advice for you, Councillor McKay.
I think, just checking, Councillor McKay, is the report on decarbonisation, which is on biodiversity net gain. Okay, so I think maybe confusion over the nature of the two reports. Okay.
Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Powell. Notwithstanding the fact that you'll get sent then by email, as Chief Exec said, the updated version, have you got any questions on what you've got in front of you? No? Okay, thank you very much. We will move on then. Item 7 is the draft revenue and... Okay, sorry. Apparently the microphone is losing me, and that's never do. Right, item 7 is the draft revenue and capital outturn, which I just need to find on my notes.
Thank you, Leader. So I'm pleased to bring the report on the draft revenue and capital outturn position for 24-25 to Executive. You'll see that the net outturn was a small surplus of £49,000. Of note, on the positive side, the good performances from our employment estates and some wins on business rates, and indeed income from the Follerton House. Temporary accommodation and bad debt provision, and there was, of course, an in-year transfer of £500,000 from the business rates retention reserve, absent which we obviously wouldn't be in the same sunny position to the extent that the position we're in is sunny. Yeah, I think you have the figures before you, and I'm sure Mrs. Buckle will be happy to answer any questions with my assistance.
Right, there we are. Challenge thrown down. Members, questions for Councillor Hopwood.
Thank you, Chairman. So I always wonder when we set, because we always set a balanced budget in this council every year, and we always seem to have a small surplus at the end of the year. But I wonder if we ever set a realistic balance, set a realistic budget at the beginning of the year. And my, for instance, would be the £693,000 over. Because we knew about the, I can't find it, sorry. Just bear with me a sec, please.
Page 24.
Oh, I am here. Oh yeah, there it is. So the next 693 overspend on waste, 7.5% of the total waste budget, which is a quite a high percentage. But when we set this budget, we knew that the compliance with the Environment Act 2021 had come into place, and we knew what we were going to have to put in place to adhere to that act. We knew that there was a national pay award, I believe. We knew that there would be inflationary cost pressures, and I would have been surprised at that time if we hadn't realised that the recycling prices hadn't recovered. So I question whether actually the budget set at the beginning of last year was accurate, and whether next year we need to look at it in a different light to make sure we know of these, I mean, especially about the Environment Act, and that's the one that sort of started me thinking about this, because we knew that quite a while ago. There are other examples. There's the overspend on the, there's the underspend, there's the surplus income, sorry, on the employment estates. Well, you know your employment estates are going to have people in them. I don't believe that people, all of a sudden the estates were empty and all of a sudden they're full within a short space of time. I also think we had additional income in the employment estates, which has offset, which we had additional expense in that, which was due to, I think it was utility bills. But actually, we would have had a fair chance of knowing what the utility bills were going to be for the year. And actually, in these last 3 months, like has just been said, we have had phenomenal, massive upturn in sunshine for solar panels, for instance. So I just wonder if we need to look better at how we set our budgets in the beginning. Thank you. And I have said this for several years now, so this isn't the first time I've brought this up.
I wasn't going to make that point, Councillor Hotwood. I will turn in the first instance, I think, to Mr Mullen, because I certainly can't tell you about the operational decisions around waste, but I suspect he can.
Thank you, Leader. So you're quite right, Councillor Hotwood, that we did know about the Environment Act. However, what was really difficult to predict was the government's response in terms of how they would fund district councils to do that, to carry out those requirements. And we were expecting significant sums of funding, which were initially promised by DEFRA and MHCLG, to come through. And we were expecting some of that money to come through in the last financial year, and that didn't materialise. And when it did materialise, it was a significant reduction on the initial conversations that councils had had with DEFRA. So that applies for a significant chunk of that 630,000, I think over 50% of it. The other part is, so yes, there are always operational challenges, and this is the first year that we've run a full service with a full summer of the new recycling service across the borough. And then the final point on recycling prices, they really do fluctuate based on world events and so on, and they go up and down. Really, they're quite difficult to predict in terms of how they are affecting our income and the income that we will get. So I understand your point, but I think a lot of that was, over 50% of it was down to, we put in a projection of income we were expecting from the government, and also there was an income we were expecting from the county council, and neither of those things materialised. So that's my answer to that bit. I could talk about the sunshine bit and being able to predict that, but probably not.
Thank you, Mr. Mullin. Councillor Rake?
Thank you. I mean, it would be lovely if we could get this more accurate, of course, and I don't think there's, but if you'd strip out the transfer from the business rates retention reserve, then our budget was within 3.5%. Sorry, the outturn was within 3.5% of the budget, which I think is not a bad performance. Obviously, the big lumpy ones stick out more, but on the whole, I think that it's not an exact science at the beginning of the year to see a year ahead, and so I think that's actually overall, some things will go up, some things will go down. To get within sort of 5% of the original budget, I think is a pretty satisfactory performance, in fact.
Mr. Brooke, did you want to comment on the estates side of it?
I'm delighted that the estate has generated additional income, and I think there's scope for reducing cost base and progressing it. That's all I would say.
Noted. Thank you, Mr. Brooke. In all seriousness, is that okay, Councillor Hopwood? Does that make you happy with that?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Other questions on this? Comments? Yes, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. I don't know if I'm jumping the gun or no, but I just wanted to clarification on what the swimming pool support fund is.
Mrs. Buckle.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, so that was a government fund which we applied for some grant funding. So the swimming pool support fund was actually government funding for the leisure sector, and we were successful in our grant application for that. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to deal with. If you look at the screen now, members, you'll notice that there is a second recommendation in red. Now that stems from, if you look at page 25 of the report, you will see that the second item down is a bad debt provision, increasing the level of provision for bad and doubtful debts, including a provision for the leisure service. Now, on the grounds that we are necessarily thinking about our leisure relationship, I think this is a really good opportunity to establish formally through the exec that leisure working group that you will know that I've been talking about for some time, with membership to be agreed by group leaders, and the terms of reference being approved at the first working group meeting. Now, it says it there, but the overriding purpose of this group will be to come to the executive, but it's actually about how members can work better with our leisure service provider around ideas around social prescribing, around health benefits, around community outreach. What I'm trying to do, and I've had input from lots of members about this. So this isn't my idea. This is very much an idea that's grown up around the leisure service provision. At some point, we're not going to exist, and a new unitary authority will take over. And leisure is not a statutory service. But I would like the leisure provision in this area to be such that whatever unitary authority takes over, they would be mad not to continue supporting it. And I think the way we do that is by using the skills of our councillors as local champions to really try and help our leisure provider to get itself embedded within the wider community. We know the benefits of leisure, and I just think perhaps the more support we can give them in terms of that outreach and community work, the more we serve our residents and we serve the process in general. So I hope you'll be able to support that, members, and then obviously group leaders will have an input into who might sit on that panel. Yeah, I'll come to you, Councillor Hodgson, but I'm going to go to the Chief Exec first.
So just to be clear, the outturn report references the spend to reduce the outstanding debt against leisure, and we have already within the forward plan a commitment that we will bring a report back in October that will deal substantially with that element. In other words, the relationship between us and Fusion will be dealt with through that channel. As the leader has said, this is a separate but parallel piece of work about how we make the best of our leisure facilities for our communities. So hopefully that helps.
Councillor Hodgson.
Thank you. I just want to speak on the second part of the recommendation, and I really welcome this. I think it's really important that we give local parish and town councils the opportunity to be maybe more involved, and this would be the sort of like the way to make that happen. I think there's been huge frustration at the local level, actually, in terms of what happens with our leisure centres, because everywhere's different. Everywhere's got a bit of a sort of what it prioritises or whatever. But I certainly appreciate that. In fact, I think there is an opportunity to raise funding at the local level to deliver what people actually want and will use and enjoy, and it's so important as part of our offer for well-being and health for people of all ages. So I think it's an opportunity for some of the things that we've, in some ways, not deliberately, but just by the structure and the way the money has been in the last few years, and of course COVID, that our leisure centres have been real struggle, as opposed to maybe this is an opportunity to take away that struggle from us and share some of the opportunity to raise funding and get more people involved, actually, and more people using them. Certainly in Totnes, it's good, but it's a bit of a problem, if you like, that in Dartington, a new leisure centre has opened up and everybody loves it. So it's because there was not adequate going on. So it shows there's an interest in having them. And I think that's what we might see if we don't actually sort of take action to actually use what we have to share with the local people.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, and of course, but it's worth pointing out, Councillor Hodgson, that there are different experiences, aren't there, depending on where you are. So Councillor Hopwood and I would say to you that our wards, this is about convincing the leisure service to be more inclusive in how it looks across the district as a whole, whereas for other wards, where you're lucky enough to have a leisure centre self-contained, the relationship will be necessarily different. Councillor Hancock.
If I may appeal to you double-hatted councillors, in light of your initial comments, I think the real prize in terms of this is aligning our leisure services with services that are offered at county level, using them as basis to deliver county services out of, embedding those services more deeply in the community, in engaging in places where people actually are, rather than in more distant, alien sort of places.
I fully take the point. This is trying to do that at the same time as working with county, because obviously ultimately whoever takes the leisure on will have a part of county responsibility in it, as through the new neutralisation. Okay. John, did you want to speak?
It's the first time I've heard of the swimming pool support fund, which is interesting. I've got in my ward a primary school with a swimming pool which is currently non-functional, and there's a huge surge of support just recently about people saying we ought to bring this back into service. Is this something that could be considered by the working group? Is this something that would fall under that? And is there any opportunity via the swimming pool support fund to help with that?
I look to Mrs. Buckle.
Thank you, Leader. My understanding is that Swimming Pool Support Fund was a one-off government grant funding scheme, and I think that has now closed. So I don't think there are any, unfortunately, I don't think there are any further opportunities, but we will continue to look for opportunities. I mean, Sport England always do lobby the government for extra funding for the leisure sector, but that was a specific fund at a point in time. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. When I was on audit a few years ago, Fusion agreed to come and talk to us every half yearly to say where they were with their financial situation and the way forward. Are we still going to do that? Can we get Fusion back to explain to us where they're making to? Thank you.
It's my understanding that we still do, Councillor Taylor.
I just mentioned that Fusion appeared at the last ONS meeting and were scrutinised and examined by ONS. So That's, they do come. I think it's once every 6 months rather than a year. Once every 6 months. So, if there are that opportunity still exists for members to question.
Yeah, no, but I mean, fair enough, Councillor Taylor, because that is a finance question and this is a finance item. So yeah, thank you. Yeah. Any more financial questions? No? Okay. Thank you, Councillor Rake. Thank you, Mrs. Buckle. Councillor Rake, do you want to move the recommendations?
I would like to move the recommendations.
Right. Well, I would like to second them then, please, as, particularly the second one as well. Members, you see there is the second one that I've already read to you on the screen in red. So could I see those in favour of the recommendations as shown?
That's unanimous for both recommendations. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Mr. White. Okay, thank you, members. Okay, so next item is item 8, Integrated Performance Management Report, which is page 29. So, members, that's me, although it isn't really, is it? Because Mr. Hawke's done all the work on this. But Mr. Powell is here to represent Mr. Hawke. Okay, great. So you have got, because Mr. Powell is obviously taking the credit today. Well done, Mr. Powell. Yeah.
Thank you, Leader.
So you've got the Delivering for Our Communities document. It is, I've said it before, I'll say it again, it is a really user-friendly document. It's very well laid out. You'll notice, you'll have read it already, I know, but it's portfolio, colour coordinated, it's very clear with action status, it's got the RAG ratings at the start. I commend it to you, but you've read it. Would you like to make comments? Would you like to ask questions? Would anyone like to say anything about it? Councillor Hopwood.
Thank you. Just, I've been looking at the approved budget for each group and the actual spend today. And a lot of these budgets have got, I mean, the one I'm on at the moment, I'm not going to pick that, climate and biodiversity, I'll get shot. Economy and jobs. Right, economy and jobs. It has an approved budget, for instance, of 145,000. That's over the past 2 years, I presume. And its actual spend has been 8,000. Although there are targets within that budget that they say are on track, it seems that we're not actually in the first 2 years of this document. We're not actually spending a lot of the money.
Would you like to comment, Councillor Birch, as the portfolio?
Yeah, can I just say I don't.
Just an example.
I'd rather someone from the finance answer this question because I don't recognise these figures. Because the fact is that most of the spending in respect of from the economic development comes from grant funding, and it's very much dependent on giving grants and carrying out. I mean, what is happening in economic development is a lot more than what's shown here, and I don't, as far as the budget is concerned, I think I'd leave that to Lisa to explain rather than me.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Birch.
So perhaps I could help.
Yeah,
Leader. So I think it's what you would expect, really. It's a brand new plan, and we are monitoring. We're only into the first quarter of monitoring. So having set a delivery plan which covers multiple years with a financial plan to support that, I think it's where we'd expect to be actually at this point. I think probably when we get into the latter part of the year, if by Christmas we see that there's still quite an imbalance in terms of, that's when I think those questions would be more pertinent. But I'm confident that we're getting on with things as set out in the plan. Councillor Harwood.
Thank you.
So I will look forward to that question again in the December, except Councillor Harwood. No, fair enough. But I think the point is fair, isn't it? That if it's like that in December, Councillor Hodgson.
Thank you. Given that our priority is about climate change and biodiversity, I know biodiversity is far less easy to measure, except in sort of areas perhaps where we win or lose. But in terms of climate, we could actually start putting maybe a carbon savings in here. I'm aware that there's an awful lot of metrics that can be used now, so it doesn't have to be the most difficult job in the world. There's things that you can just tap into. And for example, the county, they now have carbon footprints being monitored on all their investments. So there's a lot of things out there that it could actually be used for. So I just thought it might be just included as a KPI or something like that. But I think it's quite a critical thing because it gives us a real indication about whether we're making a difference. And we could include into that then, of course, the carbon savings of community composting, which maybe would up the figures a bit as well for you.
So perhaps I could help. So, I mean, I actually think you're making a very good point in that regard. We have just referenced the fact we're going to bring a comprehensive report on both of those issues later in the year to the executive. I think when we consider them, if at that point there are useful targets that could be included, we can do that. So I'm looking to Mr. Powell. He's not shaking his head at me, so I'm hoping he's going to say.
Do you want to come in, John? That's okay.
Well, just that, I know that Adam, I don't know if he's with us, but he's been working on a carbon impact assessment tool that hopefully all projects above 100,000, I think, are going to be measured by, and it'll go through that. And it doesn't only measure carbon; it's also looking at social impact, etc., etc. Yeah.
So I think there'll be a range of metrics, and there'll be, I think Mr. Powell will confirm in a minute, that report, which will be an omnibus report effectively, will bring all that information together. So if at that point you, as an executive, want to update your performance indicators within the council plan, that would be the appropriate time to do it.
Yeah, that's correct. Chief Executive, yeah, there's a report coming that Councillor Domit's bringing to the September meeting, which sets out our progress against our own net zero 2030 target. And I think that'll be a good opportunity for members to see whether the work we're doing is what they want and any other measurements we could put in place for either the impact of changes we make to our own activities or changes we make to the wider impact on climate change.
If I could just say, what's really useful with these, though, is if possible to have not just an overall kind of, averaged out carbon savings, but maybe a little bit like our finance plan, where you can actually see whether there's some things that are giving us more benefit than others, because that's also really useful. Not detailed down to granular, but a fair breakdown would be really useful. Somebody seems to be.
Just to confirm, yes, I mean, the report that's coming will break down each individual activity that we've done towards our own net zero target, as I say. So it will be quite granular in detail, Councillor Hodgson. But I'd be interested to see what County are doing in terms of measuring the impact of some other activities, and I'm sure we could follow that where relevant for particular activities that the council are promoting or delivering.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions on the performance management report? Councillor O'Callaghan.
It's not really a question. It's just it's a sort of continuation. Really, it's just that the figures which have been mentioned for housing example, it just the actual spend to date zero. It's kind of perhaps needs a bit more context and clarification and expansion, because it's a key priority. It looks like we haven't spent anything, but as Councillor Birch said earlier, you get money from grants and elsewhere as well. So it's not the full picture. It's not the full financial picture. So it's someone looking at this who doesn't know, then they might wonder why that figure is how it is.
So I can help on that as well, Leader. If that, so I agree with Councillor O'Callaghan, but of course this is the funding which is specifically applied to the individual projects within the plan. What it doesn't reflect is the very wide-ranging activity and cost and spend in relation to the council's core business. So I take the point, but I think if we included all of that detail in it, frankly, we'd get lost in so much detail, we'd lose the point about the specific projects we're delivering against. But
Councillor Birch.
I mean, I think they're confusing, and I don't think they say they give the impression of a department or whatever, or a team doing nothing. So I mean, if you look at economic development, it's just as though, well, what are you all doing? And it reflects badly on the teams who are delivering the council's plan. So I think they're better, in my opinion, they're better out, because they're not providing. They're just causing confusion as opposed to giving valuable information.
Councillor Birch, are you talking about specifically that page, for example? Okay. So my,
well, and I mean, Denise has just raised the point.
So what I would say in response to that is when I read this. So if I read the purple page on housing, Councillor O'Callaghan, I look at the action status box and I see that one action has been completed. There are 18 actions on track. Now that says to me straight away that there is an awful lot of work going on that is on track at the moment. Bearing in mind we're at the start of the process. If I look at economy. Again, economy, there are 18 on track. There are 4 completed.
All for the cost of £8,314.
Well, I can only congratulate your department on its incredible financial efficiency, Councillor Birch. Councillor McKay.
Well, I mean, I agree with both John and Denise. I think it is misleading. And why is it not possible to include a figure? Because basically that money is seed funding and it's leveraged other funding coming in from other places. If it was made clear what the total spend was on these projects, and this is how much money we've actually had to spend in order to be able to draw in those funds, it would give you a much more clearer picture as to actually what's going on.
So we can do whatever the executive would like us to do. That's absolutely fine. But the reason this was originally developed was so that you could keep an eye on the specific projects within your council plan. If you'd like us to include a little bit more financial information, we can. What I would say is, on a very regular basis, you get a very comprehensive report which sets out all of the revenue and capital spending that the executive are doing. And actually, there is a bit of inconsistency in the reporting in this paper, which I accept. But that's largely because it reflects the conversations which lead directors and lead members have about the content they want to put in. So,
but although this might be useful for the executive and we can be these things can be explained to us, this is a document that's going out to the public. So, I mean, I think it is a bit misleading.
Well, we can make those refinements. It's clear that there's an appetite to do it, but all I'm pointing out is that all of that information is already available in the public domain. We report it very regularly to the executive, and this is intended to be performance against the specific targets, as opposed to a general update on all housing activity. But if you would like more detail on some of those things, then by all means we can include it.
I don't think we want more detail. I just think we want this deleted.
I don't personally. I don't want a performance management report to be deleted because I think performance management is an important report.
No. Sorry, you missed. I don't want this report to be. No, the report's great. It's the financial bit at the bottom, the approved budget, the actual spend today, year end. That's what I'm suggesting be deleted. Is that part?
Members, are you happy to have that deleted?
It serves no useful purpose.
Would you like to explain your rationale for that, Councillor Hopwood?
Yes, thank you. I find it very interesting.
Right. Well, we
can't do two contrary things, Lee.
No, we can't. We can't. So we've got 2 options here. We can either add more financial information to this document, or we can take the financial boxes out. Well, no,
I'll propose out.
Would someone like to second that?
I propose more.
We have a counter proposal.
All I'm asking for really is one figure, not the total spend. How much have we managed to leverage as a result of that spend? And that would be a very interesting figure.
Mrs. Buckle.
Thank you, Leader. So yes, the figures within the report, they are just the funding coming out of the South Hams District Council plan element. So, for example, if we take housing, which is 60,000, that is for the South Hams housing offer. Also within the housing theme, for example, we have just under 900,000 projected spend on disabled facilities grants. We have 1.4 million on things like local authority housing fund and leveraging Homes England grant. In terms of the economy, the 140,000, for example, there's 80,000 in there for town economic plans. And I do know, talking to Mr. Shears, those are scheduled in for the rest of the financial year. So his team are working on those town economic plans. There is a clear timetable. So that will show in the next couple of quarters reporting as that expenditure happens. And I think it is because we are in the first quarter of the year and reporting. But we can add in, for example, the capital projects on disabled facilities grants, local authority housing fund to the housing theme if that's what members would like. We can add those in.
Thank you, Mrs. Buckle. Councillor Hancock.
Given the extensive list of funding that Mrs. Buckle has just given us, it sounds like that's actually quite a lot in what is to include in a small document, and it seems that wouldn't really work. So I don't really agree with Councillor Butcher's sort of idea to just scrub it, because I think it's probably useful information. But can we not just add in a note to each section that says this is not the whole amount of the spend on the area. It is allocating blah blah blah. Just that little bit of context that says we are actually spending more money on housing than this. It's not just at such a piddly
Can I
little
make a
amount.
suggestion? I don't know whether to tread into this debate on it, but why don't we include the specific spend against the specific projects, which is the purpose of this, but we can also include, by way of context, the overall spend on those areas within the revenue budget. Then members will see the two elements. But I would rather do that than include loads of detail in here, which turns it into a budget report rather than a performance management report.
Yeah. So I think the best way of doing this is that if we do that for the next one, remember these documents belong to lead members. So in between the exec SL, the pre-exec meeting that we have to clear the papers, in between that meeting and this meeting, that will be your opportunity next time to say, I'm happy with this, or I'm not happy with it. Okay, because really, in theory, by the time it comes to us today, we should be happy with it. So if we're not, let's make sure next time we are happy with it. And it sounds like we're going to add that in, so.
We'll do that.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'd be happy with that. It's just, as we've all said, really, just to clarify, if people look at, these are easy to look at, these tables.
And that's
but
the
they
point,
need
yeah.
also to be correct as well as clear to look at. I know it's not reams of figures, but just a short, concise way of clarifying that it isn't quite how it seems, that we haven't spent nothing on housing.
No, that's fine. And your point is noted. And I think we've got a response that we seem to be broadly happy with. So
yeah, absolutely.
On that basis, I'm going to move the recommendations as per the screen, but with you knowing that next time that extra information will be on the next set. Okay. Anyone like to second that? Yeah. All those in favour, members?
That's unanimous. Thank you, Leader.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, next item is item 9, and that's you, Councillor Hopwood, Household Support Fund.
Thank you, Chairman. Supporting our residents through the cost of living crisis is a priority of this council, although not set out as a priority, and I still say it should have been. And this is how we will use the latest round of household support. Is £297,896 and covers the period April 25 to March 26. The funding is again intended to support households who would otherwise struggle to buy food, pay utility bills or meet other essential living costs. I am delighted to announce that the council will help low-income Depending on the age of the child, the council will provide vouchers at between £60 and £150. And by doing this, we estimate that we will help with school uniform costs to 1,406 children. The council takes its role of being a good corporate parent very seriously and will be providing 2 direct support payments of £500 in July and December to Devon County Council care leavers, providing the same level of support to any newly notified Devon County care leavers to March 26. We will also be providing support to carers by providing payments of £150 in July and December, which we estimate will help 100 households. The recommendations also provide one-off grant support of £5,000 to Homemaker Southwest, and that this will provide a caseworker for 1 day a week offering benefits advice, debt support and helping with budget. This is being match funded by West Devon Borough Council through their household support fund. We will also provide funding of £10,000 to South Dartmouth Community Energy to help them continue with their vital work, helping with energy efficiency and housing issues such as damp and mould. The balance of the funding will be released in 3 stages throughout the year through an open application process, giving all residents the opportunity to access financial help in a time of crisis. In the report as well is an update of the cost of living activities that the council delivered in 2024-25. Happy for Mrs Hoskin to take any questions. Or myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hotwood. It's an excellent report. Ms Oxis, want to add anything at this stage? Or
no, thank you, Leader.
Councillor Brazil.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. I probably should declare a personal interest because obviously this comes via the County Council, and we had a cabinet meeting back along where we agreed the sums. And whereas, you know, I think the Household Support Fund is a fantastic initiative by the previous government and now continued with this government, and let's hope they continue as well. I'd just like to congratulate our officers here at South Hams for having, you know, being able to direct this funding in a very focused manner, so it's really reaching the people that need it the most. And I think government should listen and see what we do with the money. They've come unstuck around the winter fuel payment allowance because they don't know how to fine tune it to give the money to the people that really need it, you know, and not give it to the people that obviously don't need it, and they struggle with that because they've only got such a blunt instrument. Of course, if they gave us the money, then we know who to give it to. And I think government should learn from that actually with our local knowledge and experience and the dedication and professionalism of our officers, we can focus that payments to the people that really need it the most. So I think it's good news. I'm sorry that it's not quite as much as we would have liked. That's because we've got less funding from government. But, you know, I congratulate all the officers and Nikki involved in this. I think it's you know, it shows what can be done. Thank you.
Very quickly, you better let the record show that I was involved in that decision at Cabinet as well, as was Councillor Hodgson. So we'll have personal interest in that as well. Mrs Hotchkiss, and then I'll come to you, Councillor Hodgson.
I was just going to come in on Councillor Brazil's point around extensions or future funds. The government have actually announced a new crisis and resilience fund, which will be a combination of the household support fund and discretionary housing payments. I think the benefit of that will possibly be that they're indicating that they will include it in the financial settlements, which will give us a bit more certainty in terms of actually planning rather than having to respond at speed to funds as they're announced. So I think that's probably a bonus for the future in terms of planning and delivering those funds.
Councillor Hodgson.
Thank you. Yeah, I think this report is something to be really proud of, the work that we do directly with communities and those who really need our support. And I think that it's not just what we see on paper here. I know that behind the scene, there are many officers here who are really good with local members of the public and families who need that sort of, not just the support, but the actual sort of, there's a bit of emotional support as well, because it's quite frightening when you actually really don't know where the next money's coming into. And it obviously fits in well with what's going on at the local level with food banks, etc. So it's really necessary at the moment. Just one of the couple of points I wanted to make was, one, in terms of the money that goes to the Dartmoor Energy Group, I've seen them out and about time and time again, and they do fantastic work. They really do help people with lots of advice. So the fact they've got some budget to be supported, and also the fact that they're helping people have budgets too, it's a really important piece of work that goes on. And it's a number of people have spoken to me when I've been out and about with those, you know, just by chance by the same place, and said that's really good, really helpful. because it's not just about the mould and damp, it's also about people getting their energy bills down, which is helping them sort of reduce their costs, as well as obviously helping us with the climate emergency. But the other thing I did want to say was about the money going to care leavers, and what I would just diplomatically suggest is that there's some way that we help them to maybe not have that money all in two big tranches. If you're 18 and you know, a lot of us who've had kids coming out as students going off to college and they blow the whole of their grant in the first fortnight, you know, and then it's, oh, what do I do? I think, you know, these young care leavers could easily be in a similar position that they're not used to budgeting and the money goes much quicker than they expect. I mean, there's a lot of pressures on budgets anyway. And I just wonder if it might be worth somebody being able to have a conversation, you know, and just with the care leavers. And I absolutely agree that this money should be made available sooner rather than later, because they may need it for sort of, you know, deposits on a flat or something like that. But just to be aware that maybe it might need to be helped to be drip fed a bit rather than, you know, big lump sums like that.
So hopefully I can be helpful here. I mean, each of the care leavers will have a personal advisor. So I think the appropriate route would be for that to be the route for those conversations, because each of them will have different needs, different opportunities. We'd expect those to be the people who would be helping, guiding and supporting each of the individual care leavers. Of course, colleagues in our team will be involved as well. But I take the point you're making, Councillor Hodgson.
Thank you.
Councillor Dommett.
Thank you. With the funding, the open application scheme, how is that being communicated to residents and making sure we reach those that aren't already in our system for some reason?
We are doing a press release today, and that will be within the press release.
Did you want to add, Jenny?
Yeah, I'll just say in addition to that, when people contact us for other reasons and they present as being in need, we will obviously direct them towards the fund. We also will make partners such as Citizens Advice aware that the fund is going live. We're hoping that it's actually going to go live within the next few days. So in addition to sort of the formal channels in terms of press releases, we do also have sort of more, you know, sort of practical engagement with residents and partners just to make sure that everybody's aware of its availability.
Thank you very much. Any other questions on this report? Councillor Hopwood.
Thank you. Can I suggest, Chairman, through you, that we actually ask at some point South Dartmoor Community Energy to come in and just tell us what they do, and because we are giving them this money, it's a substantial amount of money, and I would like to know what we're, you know, what their outturns have been, and it would be really helpful. I don't think we've ever had, I can remember once before having them in to talk to us, and I would really like to listen to actually what they do within the communities again, just for a reminder.
I think the most appropriate place might be through ONS, Mr Molyneux. Perhaps you could speak to Councillor Hawkins and suggest he invites them.
I don't care where it's through, just the council, yeah.
Happy to do that, Leader.
Thank you very much. Any more on this one? Okay. Sorry, Mark, apologies.
Leader, thank you. I just wanted to acknowledge the work that's gone in, you know, to providing this sort of support. Having had feedback from residents who have received support in areas, they are very grateful. It's obviously disappointing that, you know, it's not more, but for some it is a real lifeline. And I think the stress that it takes off some people, you know, is very important and may not be seen by sort of just looking at the figures here, but this is a lifeline for some families and some individuals, and I think particularly for the carers as well, that carers allowance as they come out. It is very important, and I sort of thank the officers and the exec for the work that they've done on this.
Thank you, Councillor Long, absolutely. Thank you for saying that. Nice way to end that item, I think. Councillor Hopwood, would you like to move the recommendations?
Thank you, Chairman. I move the recommendations.
And a seconder, please. Councillor Dommett, thank you very much. All those in favour?
That's unanimous, Leader, for the 9 recommendations. Thank you very much.
Chairman, I'm sorry, it's really, really cold in here, and I have sat here and I just can't. I've done an hour. I'm over it now. It's freezing up here. Thank you. Could we do something about it?
Mr. Molyneux, could
Leader,
you fetch a blanket, please?
We've tweaked the temperature up to 21 degrees at the moment, but we can tweak it slightly higher.
Members, could I invite you to generate more hot air, please, members? Okay, yes, I think they're going to do some tweaking for you, Councillor Hotwood. In the meantime, let's see if we can't do exactly that and get some more hot air in here. So let's go on. Where are we next? We are on item 10, which is Plymouth and South Devon Community Forest Plan adoption, which is Councillor McKay and Mr. Secular. So, John.
Okay, I'm not going to speechify about this. I mean, it's an amazing report, and I think it's a no-brainer. And I hope you've all read it, and I congratulate Rob on all the work that he's put into it. And I would like to hand over to him directly, basically, wherever he is.
Thanks, Councillor McKay. Yeah, I can't really take any credit for this one. This is bringing forward a joint plan which the Community Forest team have led on. We sit as part of the steering group on this with West Devon Council, National Park, Devon County Council and Plymouth City, so it's a bit of a joint effort. It was a requirement of DEFRA to bring forward a community forest plan. All of the 15 community forests around England are doing the same. We met the initial requirement of DEFRA, which was to publish a draft plan or to circulate a draft plan by March, which we've done, tick the box. We're now looking to adopt the plan. So this has been pretty widely consulted upon with the usual suspects. It's had strong support, I would say. I think there's been recognition that community forest is an excellent initiative and it's been performing well so far. What this plan really does is articulates a long-term vision. So the vision's objectives have been bounced around ad infinitum at the steering groups, but I think are quite sensible now and demonstrate the ambition, if you like, of the community forest, and it is quite ambitious. There's a few small tweaks. The boundary is being clarified, I would say. So South Hams fell within, part of South Hams fell within what was being described as a halo. So as you'll know quite well, we've benefited already significantly from the community forest, but this formalises the boundaries such that the whole of South Hams is included. It also starts to spread into Teambridge and Torbay. So over a bit of a soft lead-in period, we'll start to see schemes filter through from those areas as well. And really this is recognising beyond the borders that this is an excellent way of delivering woodland creation and proper woodland management. So hopefully a real good news story. In terms of what the plan will do, it will underpin future approaches to DEFRA. One's already been made in terms of future funding, Trees for Climate funding too, and no doubt there'll be ongoing iterations of government support for this sort of scheme, and hopefully ultimately a bit of a stimulus for private investment as well. So really it's like John said, I think it's something hopefully we can throw our weight behind, and really I would hope there are no negatives to this. I think it's a really good news story.
Thank you, Rob. Members? Councillor Hotwood.
Sorry, can I ask, is there any South Hams Council money going into this plan? I just couldn't see anywhere where it's financially, it said who would be paying for what.
So, sorry, do you want? So as Councillor McKay has already said, this is a plan. It's a strategy. It sets out the overarching ambitions. Within that, of course, we take individual decisions about particular projects. And whilst Mr. Sakula might be quite coy about his contribution, I think his contribution has been very significant, pointing to the Hope Wood, Woodland Creation Scheme, which he led on with a fantastic piece of work, working closely with the community, residents in South Brent, a wonderful achievement, I think, actually, part of the council's ambitions, clearly embedded within the council's plan. The council did make a financial contribution towards that, but of course it did so in return for which it got an enormous amount of funding from the government into that project. So all of that financial information was clearly set out in the reports when those decisions were made by the executive. But I think it provides an enormously positive opportunity for our communities, this overall approach. And as I said, Mr. Sakula is working on our behalf and making good use of it. Hope that helps.
sorry, I feel slightly conflicted because I think the document itself is excellent, and I've read it through, and it's really, it shows so many positives. There are no negatives within it. Where I do have an issue is that I don't support, and I never did support, the £200,000 that this council put up for trees in Hope Wood. I think it was was it not that wood? But
It was not. It was never 200,000, and there's also the other side of the equation insofar as there is an opportunity to recoup a lot of that money, if not all of it, and actually possibly even make a profit through the BNG and other carbon.
So perhaps I can help. There is a sum of 200,000 within the overall plan, but the amount that was committed for Hopewood was significantly less than that. And as Councillor Mackay has already said, not only is it fulfilling a community ambition, a clear ambition of the political administration to plant a tree for every resident of the South Hams, and making a massive contribution towards that, because of the business model, it's very likely that the funding will be capable of being recycled through a biodiversity net gain, etc., which means that we'll be able to do more of that in the future within the cost envelope. I think it's one of the best things we are doing as a council, and in terms of the funding and recycling of that funding, it creates a legacy for the future. So we have got all the details, though, Councillor Hobwood. If you would like to go through them, we'll happily do that.
I suppose the other thing to say, Councillor Hopwood, is you can support this and then not support an individual project that is brought forth under the umbrella of this. So by supporting this, you are not complicit, to use a pejorative, in something you might not want to be complicit in.
Yeah, we're doing individual business
Yeah,
cases.
absolutely. Individual business cases. Councillor...
No, I'll just thank you, Chairman. That's all, because I would support the plan. What I don't support is the £200,000. So thank you very much for explaining that.
Which is your right, Councillor Hopwood. Councillor Hancock.
I think I would just like to point out that with the Hopewood in Saffron, if I may put on my board member hat on for just one moment, is that what it is not just creating, however many houses for residents of South Hams, it's created an incredible community asset for residents of South Brent. The woodland will be accessible to members of the public for leisure. There's also a large community market garden, which will be creating food for the community, mitigating cost of living pressures, which you rightly raise as a major concern for this council. So I don't think it's a simple sort of I think the benefits of it are simply manifest beyond the carbon reduction of tree planting and all of that.
Councillor Hodgson.
Thank you. I think this is a fantastic report. It's really inspirational. It makes you want to do it, and it shows the value of trees and how it's, put it into a sort of an organised document, really sort of sets out how we can really achieve quite a lot. I would just say, in terms of it's page 47, which is deliver objective evidence and rationale. Those of us who went to the 25th anniversary of More Trees, I think it was last Friday or the Friday before, I can't remember which. There was people from all over the area who'd been part of that journey from where More Trees just started putting a few acorns in and planting up and getting more and more people involved in planting self-sown trees and making those trees widely available, and they've done that for a long time. I'd just like to see them acknowledged in here somewhere, and I think maybe in that shopping list of who's been involved, I think that might be a useful acknowledgement, because apart from anything else, not only have they planted, I don't know how many, I can't remember the number of thousands of trees that they've planted, but they've planted with communities and they've built up a huge body of people enthusiastic as volunteers for going out and planting trees. And I think that's, to mention them in here and include them in how we take this forward, I think would be only to our benefit. And I think it would be only fair to acknowledge a group that's done a huge amount of really good work, actually.
I suspect it would probably have to go into a later iteration, but I shall ask Mr. Secular.
I feel you're probably right. They are acknowledged as a consultee. Yeah, Councillor Hodgson is right. They're a key partner on this, albeit not on the steering group as such, but certainly a key delivery partner.
But you can feed that point back, presumably.
Yes, happy to. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Callaghan.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I totally agree. It's a really, really positive, inspiring report, and I like the emphasis on the involvement of young people at its heart, particularly 4.5, for example, that's mentioned. The Forest Rising Initiative, which I think is great. It's very inspiring to young people. You know, we need a lot of hope in our times, and I see that at least 3 people have been found full-time employment in this sector as a result. So I'm pleased to see that's being this entire thing is being extended into the South Hams, and as Kingsbridge ward member, you won't be surprised to hear me ask about the specific in 4.8, where it's talking about another site near Kingsbridge in the pipeline. So maybe I could ask Rob about that, if he's got any more information about that project or potential project as well.
Yep, thank you, Councillor Callaghan. Yep, this is a site that we have an offer on the table, grant offer from DEFRA for the acquisition of a 17-hectare site near Kingsbridge. Sadly, we've been stuck attempting to navigate through the National Probate Office for certainly well over a year now. So we're chasing constantly, as are our solicitors and the seller's solicitors. Sadly, it's to do with grant of administration, but the National Probate Office works at an incredibly slow pace. But as it stands, we have a grant offer from DEFRA on the table to acquire a second site.
Thank you.
Councillor Brazil.
Yeah, I mean, I fully support this, and thanks, Rob, for all your work. And I know you, like you say, you know, you're very bashful about the work that you've done, but it's been fantastic, and particularly around how it's linked in with stuff here in Southampton, what would not appear to be a priority for us. I think, I mean, whereas probably the vast majority of us do support it, I think our job is to persuade you and show you how the benefit that this brings, not only in respect of biodiversity, but also in respect of things like social capital, community spirit, and all those other things. And then hopefully, as it develops and matures, that in time you can champion it as well, as you do champion the cost of living crisis. So you know, I think it's healthy for us to have this debate. I think it's healthy for you to hold our feet to the fire in the sense of value for money and things like that. And I think the onus is on the rest of us to show what a fantastic projects these can be, and to go forward from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brazil. Councillor Hopwood.
Thank you. I thank you for that, because what I didn't know, for instance, is the community forest in South Brent had a part of it that grew food, and I've just written it down to go and have a look at it. So I think things like that are incredible. Had I known that, I might not have been so adverse to spending.
And of course, South Brent is a community.
Although I suppose I didn't read it. You're going to tell me I didn't read the report, and it was in the report.
I was absolutely not going to tell you that. What I was going to tell you is it's all part of the wider picture. South Brent also has a community fridge, so you know there is a joined up approach potentially from growing through to distributions of people that actually genuinely need. So it's the social capital that Councillor Brazil talks about is very real. It's not just lip service, I guess is the point. But no, I absolutely wasn't, because it's a massive report. It's really interesting and it's easy to miss stuff. Councillor Taylor. No, sorry, Councillor Hodgson, apologies.
I was just going to come back on one thing as well, in terms of when somebody says they've been flooded, their house have been flooded by these storms that we're getting, and the unpredictable, quite extreme weather. And they say, well, what's any of the local authorities doing about climate change? This is one of the things. It might not be happening immediately in terms of change, but it's the long-term changes that we can bring about by planting trees. That will make a massive difference. And, I think we just have to bear that in mind, as there's an extra value that we won't possibly even live to certainly me, to actually be able to say, yeah, we've done it. But it's hopefully this is part of the process of actually bringing around the change in our weather.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is a fantastic community asset, and that was proven when we were planting. Everybody turned out to plant. I've already spoken to Rob about this, and can you give us an update on survival rates? We've had a very dry time since planting, so I'm interested in knowing how many of those whips actually survived.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Councillor Taylor alarmed me somewhat when he reported some feedback he'd been given by a local farmer that reported 40% fatality rates, which alarmed me significantly. We think we're on about 5 to 10% fatality. So there is a buffer of 20% that the Woodland Trust, who funded the majority of the planting, when it starts to go above 20%, that's when they would intervene and do something called beating up. So beating up is where you do the rounds, you try and mark the dead trees, and then you replace them the next season. I've been around with the Woodland Trust, and they're not even remotely concerned at the moment, so they're not suggesting any beating up this year. The community forest, likewise, I'm checking in with them. Through the carbon scheme, which we'll sign up to, again, there will be a percentage which they sort of let you flex, if you like, and I think that will be 20% as well. So at the moment, we're fine. If it goes above 20%, we'd certainly be replacing fatalities, but we're fine at the moment. Just an offer to members. I seem to be doing quite a few tours around the woodland at the moment because I think a few people do take quite an interest in it as a bit of an exemplar project, and that includes some of our adjacent councils. If councillors want to spend a bit of time there and I can show you around, more than happy to. There's quite a lot going on as well as the woodland, so we've mentioned the market garden, there's fields of yellow rattle that we've just been doing some harvesting on with a brush harvester and volunteers and apprentices, etc. So there's lots of different elements to the project, and more than happy to spend an hour on site and wish you around.
So just picking up that suggestion, I mean, I think you have to see it to believe it. It is phenomenal, and I think the point that points that Councillor Hancock made about how it connects into the community is also really relevant. Perhaps we should have the offer of going and have a look at the Hopewood and South Brent situation, but maybe a couple of other things dotted around the district which are recent projects which might be of interest. So we'll put that on. We'll try and find a sunny day. So whoever's projecting the forecast on the weather, who was that? Was that Drew or no? It's Steve actually. So Steve can pick the day, and we'll make sure it's a sunny one in the autumn if members are interested.
Yeah. Councillor Long.
Leader, can I thank Rob for the work that his input he's had on this, along with many others. It's a fantastic plan. It's really a good umbrella. I'm pleased to see that the boundaries are expanding. I think it's appropriate. It covers the right area. And it is very much an umbrella. There's a lot going on out there for tree planting, hedge maintenance, all those elements. And it is an umbrella, and it links well, I'd say, with our tree, woodland and hedge plan that this council adopted as well. So it starts to pull things together, and I think it gives considerably more focus. And one of the things it does is that it helps when grants are out there, be it government grants or others, industry grants, it gives a focus and gives the ability to draw those down very, very quickly. So I think it's a fantastic thing to adopt, and I'm pleased that it's before the exec today. And one of the great things is that when you look at this and when you look at what it's talking about and the area it covers, it has life after local government reorganisation. That's the great thing, that it covers a good period. And, you know, I applaud everybody to get involved in the various activities that are out there across the South Hams in this area, because it's very important. And when you see, as has already been said, when you see the level of volunteer engagement and the youngsters out there doing it, and dare I say some of the older, when I was over at Hopewood planting, there were a couple of, I think one lady was 89 and she was thoroughly enjoying it, and I think she beat all of us for the amount that she planted. And I think it's very important that we acknowledge that it covers a greater area than just planting trees. And it really is pleasing to see that we've got this within our area. So thank you, Rob, and thank you for all involved in it.
Looks like your job today is to finish with nice words, Councillor Long, because you've done the same again. Councillor McKay, do you want to move?
Yes,
Second, Councillor Dommett, thank you very much. All those in favour?
That's unanimous. Thank you, Leader.
Okay, I know I've got officers in who are waiting on agenda items, but I'm going to give you a warning that after this agenda item, I'm going to give a 10-minute break to members so that Councillor Hopwood can warm up. No, I'm not picking on you. I want a cup of tea. So we're going to take agenda item 12, but then we will have a break for 10 minutes. Just yeah. 11, sorry. I'm jumping ahead of myself. Councillor Hancock, strategic planning update. Or are we going straight to Mr. Baker? It's up to you. I don't mind.
Happy to introduce it. So yeah, I mean, members hopefully will have attended the briefing that we had a couple of weeks ago. So should be aware of the detail and context. But I'll just summarise quickly for anyone who wasn't there or members of the public. So the proposal here is to start the process for a new local plan with West Devon. The context here is the government's changes to housing targets, which in effect, despite us meeting our housing targets rather successfully over the last few years, which I was had a briefing on a few days ago, the goalposts have been moved, and we no longer have a 5-year land supply, so we are no longer in control of the planning process. So development, as happens in South Hams, will be led by the market rather than a plan that has any kind of democratic accountability towards it. So it is necessary to do, and I hope members will agree to vote for it this morning. We also have our council priorities, which are well known to all, and this is a further chance to embed those priorities in the plan that develops, whilst learning from the what has worked in the existing plan. And I'm sure Mr. Baker will be able to add any more detail if he does need to as well. But happy.
Thank you, Councillor Hancock. Before I come to Mr. Baker, I think the other thing to point out in terms of context, which is really important, is to say that we are doing this because we are not going to have a new joint local plan with Plymouth. But I think it is also worth saying in this public forum that that is not our choice. We did not choose to divorce ourselves from Plymouth. That was very much a Plymouth choice, which is their prerogative, but I just think it's worth putting out there, particularly when I am informed on occasion by Plymouth planning officers that it's such a shame we didn't want to do a plan with them anymore. And on that note, I shall pass to Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Leader. I'm often accused of having an inappropriate Teams background, but following your last statement there, it's never been truer. This is there because we are still monitoring and implementing the current joint local plan, not because we're going to be doing another one. I don't really have a great deal to say beyond what Councillor Hancock has offered by way of introduction. We have had the benefit of giving all member briefings recently. I've had the opportunity to discuss this with exec members previously as well. So at the risk of repeating myself, I don't think I need to add any more in terms of detail, but I'm more than happy to take any questions as they arise.
Councillor Birch.
Yes, I'm sorry I was unable to attend the briefing. The new local plan. My question is, what is the period that is envisaged for this? In other words, when is it going to start and when is it going to end? No. The period for the current local plan runs from. It's got up there 2014 to 2034, but I always thought it was 2018 to 2034. But that's neither here nor there. So the current plan, which is to 2034, what is the period that this plan will run? Quite obviously, it's from the date it's adopted to whatever date it is. So bearing that in mind, if the period for the plan then goes over into local government reorganisation, how is that going to fit into local government reorganisation if, for example, we end up with the 145 solution? How is that plan going to feature in a new unitary authority that is in addition to South Hams and West Devon? That's so. First of all, how long is it proposed that it run from to, and how is it going to fit into local government reorganisation?
Thank you, Councillor Birch. Yeah, two distinct questions. Just when you think planning can't get any more unnecessarily technical, the base date of the plan is not the date that it was adopted. It's more of a monitoring date. So it kind of comes back to the starting point for when we say we're going to monitor. That used to be discretional. I'm expecting the new local plan regulations that come out under the LURA that we're going to be making our new local plan under will actually be a bit more prescriptive about that, but it will be set. It will be set by the start of the monitoring data that we use. I suspect it could be 2024 because that was the introduction of when the government introduced the new standard method for calculating housing need, but I don't know, I can't confirm that yet. The planned period will be for a minimum of 15 years. So beyond which the base date that we set will be for a minimum 15 years beyond that. Although the organisation that we sit within at some point in the future, whatever that may look like, the planning function will still remain. We'll still have to identify a housing requirement. We will still have to plan to meet that in an adopted local plan. That may form part of a sustainable development strategy that is the responsibility of whatever the strategic authority is that we're working under. But there will still be a requirement and a responsibility to set a figure, to plan to meet that figure and to monitor our performance against that figure. Whether or not we are the responsible body or we feed into another body, those obligations will remain.
So can I come back up? So it's a 15-year plan. So if there is the 145, well, I wouldn't call it a solution. How are the likes of Torbay and Teignbridge going to accept what South Hams and West Devon have come up with? How are they? I mean, how is it going to work? Because the word on the street is that Torbay want to pile into South Hams with their housing programme. So if we set a housing programme for 15 years and Torbay don't agree with that, how is that going to work itself out?
So at the moment, we still have a duty to cooperate obligation, so to work proactively with all of our neighbours. A duty to cooperate is not a duty to agree. So if we can't accommodate and meet our own housing need or requirement, we have no obligation to do so for anybody else. Part of the issue with the new housing need figures that the government have mandated upon local authorities is that the uplift is so large, particularly in areas of the southwest, because there's an affordability uplift, that most councils won't be able to meet their needs. So the duty to cooperate, the function of the duty to cooperate with regard to moving numbers around becomes a little bit obsolete. The way that housing requirements will work in the future is that under a sustainable development strategy, which at the moment is the responsibility of the combined county authority, each component council will feed into a larger number. So we'll all be responsible for identifying a requirement and finding sites to meet that as a minimum. So whether or not we meet our housing requirement, we will be accountable to the CCA, and we have an obligation to try and meet or fulfil our element of what the SDS says it's going to meet. How that is monitored and what the sanctions might be if the component parts of a sustainable development strategy that covers Devon aren't met, I don't know. That will have to form part of future regulation, but. We will have an ongoing relationship with our neighbours in the same way that we always have, because planning doesn't, although we plan around the boundaries that we have, the way people live, work, function, behave, make decisions, they're not bound by local authority boundaries. So good spatial planning principles will still dictate that we kind of proactively liaise with our neighbours on all spatial planning issues.
According to the paper here, the finalisation and adoption of this plan is July 2028. So in 2028, we may not exist. In all probability, we won't exist. My worry is this, is that we're going to do all this work, we're going to go through all this process, and it comes to July 28 or before, that is not going to be accepted by the new authority. So is this process going to be a waste of time and effort?
I'm coming to Mr. Fairburn on this one, Phil.
Thank you, Leader. I can answer that question from experience because obviously I was with Dorset as part of the reorganisation, and at that stage Purbeck had been going through a local plan process. It was ready to go to inquiry, and the decision was taken by the new council that they would progress the local plans that were well advanced, so that they had in place a local plan for that particular area, and they would apply that local plan to the Purbeck area. So it was better. The view was taken. It was better to have a local plan than no local plan at all, and so that's how that was dealt with.
You want to reply as the portfolio holder, Councillor Hancock, because otherwise I'm going to go to Councillor Hotwood. But yeah, you're the portfolio holder. So.
I think just to respond directly to Councillor Birch's concern about it, whether this is a waste of time, I suppose, I mean, given Mr. Fairburn's answer, it's not. But the risk is that we sit for the next 3 years without any control of the planning process. And that's what this is trying to mitigate, that we want to have as much control of the process as we can as a local authority. If we sit back and do nothing, we're not doing any spatial planning.
Okay.
And that's not good for residents.
Thank you, Councillor Hancock. I've got Councillor Hotwood, Councillor Brazil, Councillor Hodgson in that order. Have I got someone else up there? Oh. I'm going to take those questions, Phil, and then I'll let you come back, okay?
Thank you, Chairman. So thank you for saying the bit about the joint local plan, and Plymouth told us they didn't want us to do a joint local plan with them, because when we had the meeting with the 13 towns and parish, or one of the 13 meetings was in Woolwell last week, and the introduction said that they were already working with South Hams Council on the joint local plan. So so we were already working. Of course they were told otherwise, but so I think it's really, really important, all joking aside, that we absolutely make it crystal clear that Plymouth pulled out of the joint local plan, not West Devon Borough Council or South Hams District Council. So I just want to put that one out there again. Thank you. I read page 145.2.10. Prior to the adoption of the joint local plan, both South Hams and West Devon were unable to demonstrate a 5-year supply of land, and as such, relatively recent experience reminds us that in such circumstances, we may need to accept lower levels of affordable housing on site. Well, I'm surprised that that paragraph is in there, because actually, in the application for 2,000 homes adjacent to Woolwell, the reason for accepting a lower portion of, I believe the reason for accepting a lower proportion of affordable homes was because the developer found the site too expensive to develop, not because we had to decide that actually we had to accept them for a 5-year land supply. So I'm really surprised that paragraph is in there, and it icks me to read it. The other thing is that I would like to know, in 3.7, so in the Plymouth and South Devon joint local plan, there is the Plymouth plan and the towns and villages. The Woolwell and Roebury Village are included in the Plymouth part of the joint local plan and not in the towns and villages. In this plan that we now as a district council are putting together, is Woolwell going to be in the South Hams Council plan, which it should have been anyway, or is it going to stay in the Plymouth side?
I would anticipate that the Plymouth policy area that you're talking about was created because Plymouth were one of the 3 members of the joint local plan. So under that concatenation of circumstances, there would be a Plymouth policy area. The new plan does not include Plymouth, and therefore it logically follows that there would be no Plymouth policy area because Plymouth is not a member of the new joint local plan.
Can I?
And Phil is nodding to that effect.
Can I have a categoric assurance, please, that Woolwell and Rober Village will not be in the Plymouth policy area? They will be in the new. So Plymouth have actually ditched Woolwell and Rober Village as well as the whole of the South Hams. Thank you.
The situation under the current extant joint local plan is that Woolwell is contained within the Plymouth policy area. The situation in a new local plan between South Hams District Council and West End Borough Council is there will be no Plymouth policy area because Plymouth will not be part of that plan. I can't change the current situation because the joint local plan is still extant, and under that set of circumstances, there are areas that are in the Plymouth policy area, but a new plan will not have a Plymouth policy area. Of that, you can be categorically assured because why would Plymouth? There would be no mention of Plymouth in a South Hams West Devon plan. There would still be a duty to cooperate, Phil. Yeah. Do you want to add anything else?
I think it would be remiss of us to write a strategic plan that doesn't mention Plymouth. But yeah, exactly that. We plan to the boundaries that we have at the time when we're making a plan. There will be no Plymouth policy area because the plan will not contain any element of Plymouth within.
Thank you. Councillor Brazil.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. I mean, it's more comments really rather than questions here. And just picking up on two of the points that have been raised by John and Nikki. First of all, LGR. I think what you dipped your toe in there was the total dog's breakfast that is LGR. And the nonsense that it is causing around. At the same time that we're meant to be producing new local plans, they're getting rid of the local plan areas. So it's absolutely chaotic, and I would challenge a government minister to explain what's going on in clear English because they can't. We could spend the whole day sitting here talking about the ifs and the buts, and that's the position that we are in. So I think it's fair to say that we should ignore all the offstage noise and just press on with this. Having said that, the housing is interesting, isn't it? Because we could take the view that we don't want to do the plan, we won't have a 5-year land supply, and we'll take each application as it comes. And that's an option. Because, as Nikki has quite rightly pointed out, the idea that if you go to a plan, you have allocated sites, you somehow have set in stone your percentage of affordable, tosh. And we've seen it, and inspectors have rubbished it as well. So it's nothing to do with that. Actually, my understanding is that an unallocated site, i.e. a site that isn't, that we haven't put forward, has a higher percentage of affordable than an allocated site. So actually, you're starting from a better starting position there. So there may be an argument to us saying, we're not going to do it. And the idea that we've lost control of our planning process, no, we haven't. And many of our other planning policies are still perfectly relevant and will be part of the planning balance. It's just that the supposition in favour of sustainable development carries a lot of weight. But we've still got things like our, the areas that we've got, sustainability, highways, all infrastructure, all those things are still perfectly relevant policies that are contained within our local plan, albeit they don't carry as much weight. I mean, we all know that this is a developer's charter that the government is pressing on with, because that's what it's all about. The only people who are happy with it and the only people that supported the whole process were developers, because it's for them. Everything is in their favour. There is nothing in local people, local communities, local councils' favour at all. It is a developer's charter, and that is absolutely true. And then finally, I would say it's interesting, isn't it? So we're told we've got to build, first of all, the 1.5 million, the numbers that we've given are a total nonsense. We have been set up to fail. There is no way that we can allocate those numbers, and we've been set up to fail, which of course plays into the developers' hands, which is why they're very happy with it. And the government is going, well, we've asked you because we need it. One of the criteria is because of the affordability ratio in the South Hams, we need to build more houses. It's very odd then, isn't it, that at a time in this country when we're building less houses than we have for a generation, house prices are going down. That's that's directly opposes the government's supposed logic that if you build more houses, house prices come down. In fact, what it does show is that this is a market-led position, and that they are wanting us to be complicit in that market-led position. It's a nonsense. And throughout this process, I will support this, although as I've said, that, you know, I have some sympathy in not doing it, but I will be as obstructive as I can be throughout it all, because I refuse to be complicit with a government that, in my view, is being dishonest about housing need, because this isn't about housing need, this is about economic growth, nothing to do with housing need, and we need to separate the two, and the market. So I will be as obstructive as I can. Fortunately, I also sit on the Combined County Authority, and I'll be doing the same there. Because
you chair the Combined County Authority,
well,
don't you,
no,
Councillor Brazil?
I'm only vice chair at the moment, and they're threatening to abolish it before I become chair. But I will be doing the same there, because I just think that at some point we need to stand up and be counted here, and we don't want to be part of a government that's quite frankly lost its way and end up building loads of houses in the South Hams that are filled by people who retire down here. Nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't solve our housing need at all. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brazil. Coming to you, Councillor Hobble, but I've got Councillor Hodgson first.
Thank you. I've got a few questions, but I've also got a suggestion of how we could maybe take this forward in a very beneficial, rather than potentially just getting us all running around like, you know, chickens, like the governments love to do, and then they change the laws. One question I'd like answered at some point is what, you know, the role of neighbourhood plans in all of this, because obviously neighbourhood plans are going to be quite, you know, at the local level, a lot of people put a lot of time, energy and money into that, and I think that's something they feel quite strongly about, and I think we should maybe use the opportunity to think about how they form a bit of a jigsaw, like I remember mentioning sort of probably about 10 years ago. The other thing I would just say is, in terms of market-led, this council, you know, in the days of the DPD, 2010-ish, that was actually, as far as I understand it, we looked strategically across the area as to where we wanted the housing or thought was the most suitable places, and we looked at created those constraints plans, and then we looked at places, and then invited tenders around there. As far as I understand, I mean, Graham Swiss, who's either just gone or just about to go, you know, would have been part of that, one of the, you know, the people that's been here all that time. But since then, when we came to the JLP, we were just then inviting open markets. So we've been really exposing ourselves, in my view, to market-led, and that's why, for example, part of my ward, Dartington, has been so swamped inappropriately, in my view, because of the, you know, the fact that there was a significant landowner who needed to rake in a lot of money. And I think that's left a bit of a bad legacy, because we haven't ended up with the housing necessarily where we really need it to build on what would have been the natural organic growth around some of the towns and villages that were expanding in the natural way. There's been a couple of significant things that I think we should really be mindful here, which is that we've had a lot of, you know, there's new flooding data out now in terms of where's appropriate to build housing. I was having a conversation with some people at Devon County Council yesterday about this, that we've, you know, the flooding that we're seeing with these significant extreme weather actions, we've ended up with a lot of housing that is really vulnerable to sea level rise, really vulnerable to flooding. And I think that's something that we should be very aware of in terms of maybe even how we review what we've already got, because, you know, it's while on the one hand it maybe finally emerges when somebody puts a planning application in some ways that's a little bit too late. And in terms of the Plymouth area, I would suggest that they're just playing politics because they want to grab a whole bit of South Hams in the unitary applications, and what they don't want to be seen to be is complicit in a policy that maybe could conflict with when they look at it from a Plymouth-centric position rather than South Hams and Plymouth. So, you know, we're not daft, are we? But what I would suggest is that maybe what we do actually do is work quite clearly on new constraints plans, because those constraints plans would include that new flood data or flood risk data. It would include potentially where we might look at where we would desire some active travel routes, which were never part of our agenda before. Could include where we might want to make sure we've got good resilience in the wake of Brexit, which wasn't on the cards before, and where we might need to make sure we've got good opportunities for our farming community and food resilience, because there will be more demand on us as we go forward. I mean, okay, maybe people don't see it in the same way as I would, but in terms of climate change, we're going to be big areas of the food growing areas of the world are going to change quite a lot as we heat up in the next few years. And so we'll have a really good opportunity in the UK actually to grow more horticulture and things like this, for example, which we're not really necessarily recognising at the moment. And often it's easier for a farmer, in fairness, or a landowner, to just sell a few fields for, under this new proposals, think, oh, well, might as well cash in. And it could really compromise our opportunity to be more resilient and sustainable in this area for food growing. So those are really the main points I really wanted to make. And I would say I would really be interested in looking at those constraint plans, which we did before as we started on the process of the JLP. And I thought they were really interested, but kind of got a bit lost in the mix somewhere along the line.
Thank you, Jackie. Phil, did you want to come back on any of that?
Thank you, Chair. Any land allocation process will inevitably be informed by the most available constraints data that we've got. The new housing requirement, whatever we plan for, will need to be informed by and find new sites. That's inevitable. And those will be led by a constraints mapping exercise that leads on from a call for sites. So we have to know what's out there before we can understand what we can potentially deliver. Rest assured, though, that the housing need figure that government give us are very clear that is an unconstrained figure. Now, you will all recognise, particularly in our area, we don't live in an unconstrained world, particularly when it comes to planning. A housing requirement number is the number that we plan for, and that does reflect known constraints, land availability and deliverability. So I feel that the biggest potential benefit of being proactive, or as proactive as we can be in producing a new local plan, is coming up with a locally appropriate housing requirement figure that reflects our known constraints and site availability. And when I say site availability, and Councillor Hodgson, you quite rightly mentioned that organic growth of towns and villages is often a kind of legitimate strategy in terms of spatial planning. Most of our most sustainable towns and villages have already organically grown to the extent that they can without us unduly influencing or constraining the way that those places function. So we do have to be exhaustive in terms of what we understand could potentially be available to us. But we also have an obligation to make sure that the constraints that we know we've got are properly reflected in how we plan for the future. That will, of course, involve the new and updated flood data that we've got. It will be informed by things like the LC WIP, so making sure that active travel opportunities are properly planned for and built into the plan. It will reflect things like the local transport plan 4 that DCC are currently working on. So all of the kind of different strands will need to weave together to form a coherent plan. And the overall being what I hope you recognise as being a huge benefit to us, and a much more preferable outcome than just sitting on our hands and letting the market do what it wants. One final thing I will just add is that I have had discussions with Sean Anstey, who's the Chief Operating Officer of the Combined County Authority, about the mechanics of how they undertake a sustainable development strategy and what the role is for local planning authorities in that. The CCA don't currently have a planning team. Under the terms of their arrangement, they're not expecting to get a load of funding for a planning team. They're going to be leaning heavily on local planning authorities to do a lot of the ongoing and day-to-day planning work that we already do, including preparing local plans. And Jim McMahon MP, responsible for the whole kind of devolution process, has been very clear that local planning authorities should continue with and be proactive in writing new local plans, because it's a fundamental part of what that will eventually become in terms of the overall sustainable development strategies and how that plays out across the country.
Thank you, Phil. Nikki, is that dealt with now?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Birch.
Are we still on questions, or are we in debate?
Are there any more questions? We're in debate.
Right, okay. Guys, I should be voting against this for several reasons. Is that, first of all, what really does worry me is that we are not going to be in existence at the time the plan is put forward for adoption. So that will be out of our control. And as I've mentioned earlier, I'm really concerned that we're going to spend a lot of time, money and effort into producing a document that we will not be in a position to determine its outcome. That's number one. Number two, on page 148 of the report, it actually sets out on the 3.10 the risks of doing a plan. And the first is that there is an argument and justification for reducing houses numbers, as seems to be what's behind this, may not be accepted by the planning inspectorate. So not only is the plan is the decision as to whether that plan should be adopted will be outside of the control of this council, but also it may, in any event, be rejected by the planning inspectorate. The other 3 points there are what is it 3 points? No, 2 points. 2 points. Sorry. Yeah. The other 2 points there are really what worries me is that we could be embarking on an exercise that will leave a very sour taste in the mouth of many of our communities, where we are being set up to plan where new housing development is going to go, because at the end of the day, the plan will have to identify sites throughout South Hams where new development is going to take place. So we will be setting out to, and as it says here, exposes us to having difficult discussions with communities, stakeholders and infrastructure providers. Do we want to leave a legacy of being the council that set out where unacceptable future development is going to be? I mean, we'll be facing with difficult decisions that are going to certainly upset many within our community. And also, there's this a question, as it says here, new sites for development will be identified, have to manage inevitable discussions about managing change appropriately. You know, this is going to be a real challenge, and it's really going to leave us facing many difficult sessions with our communities. And it would be okay if at the end of the day we had a say over the final determination of the plan, but we're not. So there's too many risks. I'm sure there are other ways, and Julian touched on other ways of dealing with this. So I shall be voting against this because I think we need to think of another option rather than this.
Thank you, John.
Can I?
Yeah, okay.
Julian.
Yeah, can I say I have immense sympathy with John's position on this, but I take a slightly different view, and it's a bit like sort of being in the tent or outside the tent. And I think that if we start going through the process, you know, we can have those discussions with our communities, and we know that our communities will turn round and probably say, you know what, if you wanted to build genuinely affordable housing for local people here, we'd support it, but we don't support what you're putting forward. And then we can say we're not having it. So what we're not doing here, John, is saying, right, we're going to allocate all these sites. It's saying we're starting on a process, and I think that we can use the process to manipulate it as much as we can so that it's in our favour. You know, there is a perfectly coherent and argument to have, say, let's not do anything. But I think that what that does do is that we're in danger of not, you know, if we can try and find where there are any glimmers of light and hope within it, then we'll do that within the process rather than outside of it. So that's why I will vote for it. But I totally share your sentiments, John, and you know, I think this, you know, I just find this whole thing absolutely appalling. Like I say, I mean, unfortunately, I'm on the CCA, so I'll be able to attack it from another position as well.
And I don't disagree with you either, John. I suppose what I would say is on that first risk that you picked up, of course, the point about reducing the housing numbers is that if we do nothing, we definitely won't reduce the housing numbers. But if we try and do something, we might reduce the housing numbers. And if we lose, it takes us back to the status quo as if we'd done nothing in the first place. So I think trying is probably better than not trying, in the sense that if we manage to get a reduction, then that's positive. And so on that basis, I too will be supporting it, though I absolutely hear your reservations. Councillor O'Callaghan.
Just share the frustration that's been already, voiced here about this process. But I think we do have to go into this and make sure we don't lose our 5-year land supply. And just on the specific of the high numbers that the government are saying that we have to now support, and it seems like topsy-turvy, because the house prices won't reduce, obviously, in a high price area like this. It'll be the opposite. You could build massive houses, and it would still be the prices would still be high. So it's complete nonsense, this affordability uplift. But just to say, in answer to what Councillor Birch was concerned about, that it does say at the end of 3.10 that high-level assessment suggests that the government numbers could be reduced to between 500 600 for South Hams, which is more or less what they were before in the first place, when applying the constraints which you would consider in the local plan, the constraints of development. So that could be, that is a reasonable thing to argue, that there are constraints. And so that could be brought down within the local plan and following a call for sites to understand the extent of the deliverable sites. So, I mean, I don't think all is lost, but the whole thing does seem a nonsense in many ways. But when our crisis is affordable housing, it's not a crisis of the numbers of housing, it's a crisis of affordable housing and its need. And we're not talking about need here, we're just down to numbers, and it is a nonsense. But we hope that this local plan can do a job for us of talking about the constraints and getting those numbers down to a reasonable number for us, and that we can continue while we're here as a council to also pursue our affordable housing projects, which is running against the open market system, the developer-led system, which is able to continue in an unconstrained manner, and that we're able to pursue our small rural, we've got one coming up later in the agenda, the 100% affordable housing rope walk, that we can continue to do that, which is what people really want us to do in our small rural communities.
Thank you, Councillor O'Callaghan. Any more? Councillor Kay?
I'm afraid it's a question, sorry? Oh, no. Over the next 2 years, as the evidence and this process goes forward, what influence will that have? Can that have on planning decisions over the next 2 years? I mean, as we build up evidence with regard to constraints on the numbers, etc., will that have a valid material planning weight as over the next 2 years, or is it only once the thing has been adopted in 2028 that it'll have any significance?
Phil.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a good question. As we move through a plan and as it evolves and as it gains credibility through the what's called the gateways, so there are gateways with the planning inspectorate built into the new planning process. So there are 3 of those, and those somewhat mitigate the risk that Councillor Birch mentioned around our emerging approach and whether or not it's considered to be acceptable. We have the opportunity to test those increments with the planning inspectorate. And in doing that, we are only using the government's own guidelines in the planning practice guidance. So the risk is heavily mitigated by the fact that we aren't doing something completely left field. We're using the government's own regulations and guidance and applying it to our local area. As you get through that process, the more gateways that you go through, the more credibility you can give to your emerging position. Unfortunately, until we get to submission stage, there won't be a great deal of additional weight we can give to the housing requirement numbers, but certainly in terms of the sites that we're looking to allocate and the policy approaches that we're seeking to adopt, those will gain weight as we move through the process. The degree to which they can be used in actually determining planning applications will be dealt with on a case-by-case basis, and there's loads of legal precedent, as I'm sure you'll be aware. The way that the planning system works and functions is often kind of governed by legal precedent and legal rulings in cases where things are emerging and when there's no definitive position. But we can certainly make a stronger case for upholding our emerging position the further we get through the process.
Thank you, Phil. Jackie? Then I'll come to you, David.
I know it's a bit late, but I really am concerned about sort of a sense of like free-for-all, a lot of work going into, as has been said by John Birch. I agree with a lot of the points you make, John, but I do think we kind of, if we don't do anything, we're kind of leaving a bit of a door a bit wider open and, you know, working away ourselves. I am concerned though that the sheer amount of work and the relevant costs of that on, you know, good officers doing all of that and running around for this. And I would just go back to the point I made earlier. And I'm just thinking maybe if we could propose an amendment to this, just a slight addition really, rather than a change, that we have an emphasis on developing the constraints plan. You know, a very comprehensive constraints plan, because I think that could be the most protective thing we could have as and when this council dissolves, or whatever point that happens. It would mean that we'd have something that could, you know, at least have something that would have weight and be sort of something really helpful to the plan to going forward, whatever you know this area ends up with in terms of a new unitary where the final plan would be eventually signed off. If we've done a comprehensive piece of work that really protected the area, you know, in terms of, you know, biodiversity and everything as well, I think that could have value.
Councillor Brazil.
Yeah, no, I understand what Jackie's saying, but I mean, my understanding is that the process would indeed. I don't think we should be spelling out we're not spelling out the process here and now, and I would absolutely assume that the process would include that anyway. So because what we could be, I mean, I appreciate, you know, it's just one, that's fine, but otherwise we're going to find ourselves adding loads of things. Oh, and could we do this and could we do that? And I don't think that's what this is asking us to do. That will come at a later stage during the process. So, you know, I'm okay with that one there, but I just think we need to be careful that we don't try and decide what the process is and what's going to be already. This is just the start of the journey. And in that sense, which is partly why I'll support it at this stage. But you know, if it gets to the thing later on, I might go, no, I'm not having it. But yeah, so I'll just say that.
Okay, thank you. Any more debate, Councillor Hodgson?
The only thing I would ask for is the change on the governance structure that in the working groups that's included at the bottom that we're going to be approving as part of this. It's going to be myself, not Anna Presswell, on that working group for the South Hams.
Okay, that's noted. It'll be Councillor Hodgson, not Councillor Presswell, on the South Hams working group. That's fine. Okay, Councillor Hancock.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Jackie's amendment, I mean, my understanding is that it's part of the plan process anyway. So I mean, I'm happy for it to be included here as an amendment because I don't think it's changing anything, but it does add the importance of that to it. And I'm thinking it'll be an important piece of work in terms of understanding the what those housing constraints are and coming to that final number. I'd just like to sort of just to go back to a point that Councillor Birch made about difficult decisions and difficult discussions with communities, and I was quite troubled by that in the sense because you seem to be suggesting that we shouldn't go through this process because those discussions will be difficult, and I think that is quite irresponsible, frankly. The housing will be coming anyway. This gives our communities a chance to have those discussions and that dialogue before it gets here. And it's all out in the open, that members of the public can engage with the plan making process as it develops. They'll have loads of opportunity to do that. It's all out in the open. And it doesn't, if we don't go through this process and we avoid those difficult discussions, those housing applications will come in and they'll talk to ward members of the public will, and they'll say, well, I don't know about this. Why hasn't this been out in the public? You said, well, I'm sorry, we decided not to have those discussions and make a plan to have them. And I don't think that as a council we should be thinking about that as part of our decision making. I think it's really important that we face up to difficult decisions, that we include the public in them as we're going along, and allow public opinion to inform our decision making and our plan making.
Thank you very much. Any more debate on it? In which case, I'm going to go to Councillor Birch for the last bit, because I know you've got something different to say.
Can we do that after the vote? What I'm about to say, just after the vote, this is not.
Yeah, I suppose so. All right. Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's fine. It's a good point, because...
Sorry, you've given me the opportunity. Can I just say to Councillor Hancock, the fact of the matter is...
Microphone, John.
Sorry. The fact of the matter is, Councillor Hancock, we do have a plan. The plan is until 2034. This government has sought, and we went through a very, very comprehensive exercise resulting in this plan. What this government is seeking to do is to put that in the bin, or certain aspects of it in the bin. And why should we go about doing their dirty work for them, picking up at the point that Councillor Brazil made, in trying to find spaces for additional development within South Hams, when at the end of the day, we're going to listen to what our communities have to say. The decision, we're going to do the dirty work, and at the end of the day, some other authority is going to take advantage of all the work that we've done. We have a plan. Why should it be altered? There are reasons as to why we should stick to that plan and pick up the arguments that Councillor Brazil has made. I don't want to see this council's legacy be that it was going around here, there and everywhere telling people, by the way, we're going to have to build quite a few more houses, I'm going to put them here, we're going to propose there. It will leave a dreadful taste in the mouth as far as what this council left behind. So I'm not suggesting that what I'm saying is ignoring or not giving the community an opportunity. The community had an opportunity, they did, and we have a plan. So can I turn to the nice bit then?
I think you're right. I think we'll do the vote then.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Okay, two opposing views, quite right and appropriate. We have that conversation in public. Councillor Hancock, do you want to move the recommendations? Someone to second, please. I mean, I'm happy to do so. Councillor Brazil, thank you. Okay, all those in favour of the recommendations as per the screen. Thank you very much.
9 in favour, thank you, Leader.
And any against?
With 1 against, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so excellent. Right, back to you for the nice bit, Councillor Birch. It's your turn to do the nice bit.
I did put in a request, supported by Councillor Long, that at the full council meeting next week, we recognise the lengthy service given by Graham Swiss, one of our planning officers. Graham has already left the organisation, but he's on holiday leave as such. Officially, his term of employment comes to an end at the end of the month. He has been with this council for 40 years, and I think that is absolutely incredible. You know, he has put a lot of hard work. He's such a pleasant guy to work with, and I really think that we as a council should recognise the fact that he's been a loyal servant. He's been a loyal employee. He's done wonderful things for this council. And I think we as a council should recognise that. So the moment that we were going to recognise that, we pulled the plug on the full council meeting next week. So there we are. So I'd just like to mention it. And I don't know whether Councillor Long wants to say a few words as well.
Well, of course he does, because he finishes these agenda items, doesn't he?
Leader, I don't want to start a trend. I'd like to back Councillor Birch in this. I've had dealings with Graham Swiss before I became a district council member on Salcombe Town Council. 40 years is an achievement to be able to survive, in local authority, but also in the planning area in particular. And I think the service that Graham has given with neighbourhood plans, and I have to say that I'm delighted that this council has the number of neighbourhood plans that it does have. I think it's an exemplar to other authorities around the country, and it has given that local power to local authorities, and Graham has been sort of a supporter of that and a guide of that. So for me, from a personal point of view, and also as a ward member, for the support he's given to the parishes and towns in my ward, it's a big thank you from me to him. And I believe that most people owe a debt of gratitude to any officer of a council that spends that amount of time, as a local authority employee, but also within one local authority.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, and I'm sorry we haven't got a full council meeting, Councillor Birch, but that would have been the only item of business. So that's why we didn't have it in the end. Yes, Councillor McKay.
Can I just add to that? Because I've got a very difficult neighbourhood plan that's been going on for 10 plus years in Harberton, and it's still very tricky. And I've worked with Graham for well, I don't know, several years anyway, and he's been very, very helpful, and like you say, very easy to work with. Yeah, so I would definitely support what you're saying.
Thank you, John. Denise.
Yeah, well, good luck to Graham, and I don't want, at the risk of putting a bit of downer on neighbourhood plans. Did I imagine it, or is it? Did I read somewhere that the funding for neighbourhood plans? I don't want to put an even further down on all this. Is being pulled.
Yeah, well, you don't read the notes, do you, about ending agenda items with nice things, Councillor O'Callaghan. So you can see me afterwards, and I will tell you all about how they have been pulled. Yeah, they have.
So,
I'm afraid.
that's not good, is it?
Right, Councillor Hodgson.
Having been on the planning committee here since 2011, one way and another, I just would like to add my weight, my sort of weight to the sort of support for the role of Graham Swiss in the future planning section in particular, is support with the neighbourhood plans, which especially in the early phases was really critical. I mean, I know, Phil, you've been involved in that as well, that kind of overview and getting people to really understand. I think he was really good at helping the parishes to get a grip on it and go forward really positively and collectively. So yeah, I think he's going to leave a big hole actually in this council. So and I hope he enjoys his probably his new rowing career actually going forward.
Okay, thank you all. We'll stop there. We'll have a break now until 12:25. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much, members. Welcome back. We will go to agenda item 12, which is Southam's Water Quality Monitoring Project. Let's start with you, Councillor McKay.
Thank you. I assume everybody's read the report. This is about a really interesting project that we're doing, whereby we're putting sensors into 4 locations, possibly 5. I'll hand over to Sue in a second, who will give you all the detail. But it is I would recommend this. And it's already up there. I do want to put an amendment. Because basically, I think it would be much more efficient if we just delegate authority to Chris, the head of can't read from with my glasses on, head of place and economy, and we don't necessarily need to be involved in the actual placement of where the sensors go in the end. So because they've been through a very comprehensive process of consultation with all the interested parties, groups that are interested in rivers, and out of that we've got a shortlist that I'm sure Sue will go through. And but I'd also like to put this work in the context of all the other work that's going on in the marine sector. And I've got a little list here, but I know just talking to Sue just now that this is not the full story. These are just projects that are currently ongoing. There's a lot of stuff that's already been done. So just take it from the top. Dart Lower Ferry decarbonisation, a difficult project. I think it would be fair to say. Various things have been tried, most of which haven't worked very well. And other things are being looked at, and I'm sure somewhere down the line we'll find the best way. And obviously, cost comes into all of this as well. And then there's the zero emissions network of electric boats, a rather clumsy acronym, ZNOW project. And I've had the privilege of having a go on this workboat in Salcombe Harbour, and it's an electric boat. And it's part of a project, 3-year project, whereby they can study the work cycle of this boat and how it can best be improved. And there's an awful lot of data gathering, telemetry, etc. So it's a very sophisticated project. I believe it's in cahoots with Plymouth University. Is that right or not? No, I may be wrong about that.
Boat as well.
Yeah, they're part of. They've got their own boat. That's it. Yeah. So there's a network of these boats, hence the network in the name. There's the composite vessel recycling. Not easy to say, but and that's a project that's been going on for a while now, whereby there's an awful lot of dead boats out there that are polluting our waterways, and trying to recycle these vessels, and also to have a program whereby vessels that are reaching end of life don't just end up being sort of sitting there and rotting or being so there's that. And then there's the Salcombe Harbour carbon footprint study. I believe that was done with the Carbon Trust, and which is a very interesting look at the carbon footprint of all the marine vessels in the harbour, etc. And finally, just the behaviour change green growth products. I went to just, I don't know, 3 months ago-ish, a workshop on batteries and all the different types of batteries, and how, which was fascinating. I learned loads, and this is to help support marine innovation, and there are other projects as well. So this is a really interesting aspect of the whole sector that Sue and her team are looking at. So if you've got any questions, I'm sure Sue will be more than happy to answer.
Thank you, Councillor McKay. So I won't repeat the report. I kept it sort of quite succinct in the report, just to reiterate really the motivation behind the pilot was to offer residents and visitors the ability to access real-time water quality information on our rivers and estuaries, and currently there isn't that information available. And to achieve that ambition, we've been working to put together a pilot that will gather data that is both useful to those residents and visitors and also reliable as we can. It is a pilot, and therefore we are looking to test reliability, effectiveness and impact. And at the end of the pilot, at the end of this year, we'll be able to pull together a report which will feed into that. Data confidence is really important, and as I mentioned, so that will feed into the choice of those sites. And as Councillor McKay said, we have got 4 sensors, 3 of these which will monitor a set of parameters for water quality, and a 5th one which will also have an additional one which will be pH. And basically, in combination, they work to deliver information about biological, physical and chemical changes within the waters in our estuaries and rivers. So that we worked with the community groups, Yelm to Moor, Wild About the River, Avon River Champions, Friends of the Salcombe Kingsbridge Estuary, Friends of the Dart and West Country Rivers Trust. And we've also been working with the Environment Agency as well. We've as a group, came up with a long list of potential sites. It's really important to work with the community groups because they've got such a lot of experience and they've done so much work and are continuing to do a lot of citizen science work. And we didn't want to duplicate effort, and we wanted what we're doing to align with what they're doing. And this is really important. So we had a workshop and they came up with some sites, and from those, the researchers that we're working in partnership with at the University of Plymouth, and also the innovation team at Teledyne Valeport, looked at those and came up with a sort of a short list. And from that short list, a selection will be made once they've carried out full technical assessments about how they mount the sensors and the reliability of data from those areas. So the appendix, which gave a sort of that short list of potential sensor sites, gives some of the reasoning about why they were selected by the community groups. We've given areas because until the technical assessment is made, we can't say specifically, but it will be within, for example, Salcombe Harbour, potentially Normandy Pontoon, Dartington Pontoon, and so on, if those sites are selected. So that's sort of an introduction to the pilot, and very welcome to answer questions.
Thank you, Sue. I mean, what's particularly gratifying to see is that this is a district project that's working so well with existing community groups, and that's really to be welcomed. Too often, you know, local authorities just plough on in, don't they? But the fact that we're actually really working with these groups and taking their feedback is most welcome. Any questions or comments from other members of the exec? Councillor Brazil?
Yeah, thank you. I'd very much welcome this report, and congratulations to Sue and John for bringing it forward. And I know that we not here, but at county, the Louise Wainwright is a real champion of water quality in our rivers, and I hope that it means that we can liaise with county as well. Because I'm sure that they should and would be involved, which probably falls into Jackie's portfolio as a cabinet member in that area. Can I just say that I think it would be, I should take this opportunity to welcome the fact that the chief executive of Pennon is going, if they try and pay her some kind of redundancy thing, then that is an outrage, and they should be giving it to people like us who are actually trying to do what they should have been doing and haven't. Can I also say that I am very concerned with the Environment Agency and the revolving door between the Environment Agency and South West Water. So I think the fact that we are doing independent water testing is absolutely crucial to make sure that there is proper data that the public can see and report. because I you know, having been to a water conference and seeing the interaction between South West Water and the Environment Agency, it very concerned me greatly. So I think this is a fantastic project, and I very much hope it's very successful, and that we can try and improve our waterways as we need to. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Brazil. And I know Councillor Hodgson will have an interest, but I think the Cabinet member is actually Councillor Arnott for water.
Yes, you're right, actually. It is, yeah.
Councillor Hodgson.
Thank you. Yeah, I just think, I mean, I follow what's been already been said about, how this is really good, but I think actually it's one thing we shouldn't forget is all the wild swimmers and the people who've come along to the ONS meetings here, the, what's they called? I can't remember, the Friends of the since about 2015 that I've been going to their meetings. There's a lot of different people come in there. So to add this element of proper monitoring, impartial, monitoring, I think is going to be really beneficial. I must say, I'm really pleased to see that a local company, Valeport, down in Totnes, are being used for this. They've been there a long time, and they, I think they're being well recognised now for the, very good devices that they create there. So that's good, and so it's obviously supporting local business. But I think to have this, benefit of monitoring that will accompany a lot of the citizen science that's been going on, I think it's just, the more we have of this data, and particularly confidence to carry on enjoying that facility. So yeah, I'm delighted with this, and I should fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. No, it's well, no, you can if you want to, but I think we heard, but it's you said that out loud, Councillor Birch.
I heard.
Councillor Birch.
Thanks. Can I just make the point that the funding for this comes from UK SPF funding. This is the grant funding, and in fact, it is a economic development team project and falls within the realm of economic development. And in fact, in the Executive Forward Plan, I was due to give the report on this, but, the art of good management is delegation. So thank you, Councillor Mackay, for giving the report on behalf of the Economic Development team.
Thank you, Councillor Birch, for allowing Councillor Mackay to share some of your glory. That's most generous of you. I think that there is actually there's a really salutary lesson here, isn't there? Actually, one of the funny things about executive portfolio responsibilities is that they do that, and a good organisation should absolutely do that. There is community development in this. There is the green agenda in this. There is economic development in this. There is a wide spate of people, all of whom have the same basic intention, which is to support our communities, to ensure that we've got clean water, basically.
And environmental benefits.
Well, absolutely, yes, totally. That's what I meant by green. Sorry, I wasn't referring to the colour of the weeds. Yeah. Any other questions or input on this? I mean, it is it's a really good news story that we are supporting people locally to do the things that really matter to them. And we've, as you say, from ONS, we've seen the passion, we've seen the importance of this. So, Councillor Long.
Leader, I think it's great to see what is sort of impartial monitoring here. It's a fantastic example, really, of how a council can sort of link with and cooperate with others, involve others in what is a very important area for our local communities. And this is a clear example of us as a council supporting what our communities are demanding, what our communities require, and working with others who have the same feeling for, as you've said, for the environment, for the economies of the area. And it's really good to see this, and hopefully other councils with similar landscape as us will take this on board as well, because I think it's a very, very important thing for us to do. And I really welcome the work that's been done, and I really appreciate the work that has gone in from officers here, from John, from others, and I'm pleased to see this on the exec today.
Thank you, Councillor Long. Councillor Rake.
Thank you, Chair.
I think that it's also welcome this report. I think it's a fantastic project, and I think that the sort of quantum leap to continuous monitoring from snapshot monitoring, as is carried out both by statutory bodies and citizen scientists, is really significant. And therefore, I think that not only do I welcome this, but I welcome the intention to move it forward, and I hope we can do that at some pace, because I think that things such as having continuous monitoring at several points in the same watercourse will allow us to get a much better understanding of how the quality of water changes down a river, and that could feed into all manner of things, including resilience and emergency planning for pollution events and that sort of thing. So I think I welcome this as a first step and hope that we can take the next steps quickly.
Thank you, Councillor Egg. Any more comments? In which case, Councillor McKay, do you want to move the recommendations?
Yes, do I have to move the amendment? Or
If you're happy to take the amendment, then it becomes the substantive. Yeah, because it's your.
So I move the recommendations as they're up on the screen. Second.
Councillor Birch, indeed, absolutely, yes. Okay, members, all those in favour?
That's unanimous. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. White. Okay, next agenda item then is item 13, which is promoting the council priorities, climate change, biodiversity. Councillor McKay again. Sorry, Chris. Mr. Sears.
Sorry, can I just mention that with regards to all of the other wider marine projects, we are arranging a member briefing session for the autumn as well. So so you'll get invited to that shortly. So,
thank you, Chris. Okay. Item 13, Councillor McKay. Okay, John, it's page 163. Well, I mean, you don't necessarily need to have done it. It's the report coming in basically as a report back from where we are on conversations you have with Sustainable Southampton, I think, around your ideas. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a noting. We're noting today the work that you're doing, basically.
However, members should be aware that on Tuesday, I think it was Tuesday, yeah, we had an all-day consultation session with that was divided into two halves. The first half was with community groups, and the second half was mostly community groups, and the second half was with potential providers and or people who have some sort of association with or experience of putting on large events. I would say that it was a very successful day. I think at the first half of the day there was about 35 odd people. Not 35 odd people, but 35 odd people. Around 35. Turned up to the first session, and the second session, there was about 30 people there. There was a few no-shows, but I've since had quite a few apologies saying that they really wanted to be there, but circumstances prevented them. And also, when sending out invitations, we had quite a few people that said they wanted to come, but circumstances conspired against that because it was very short notice. The overwhelming response was very positive. They thought that the proposition that was put before them in terms of how we might go about this, in terms of setting up a steering group, a core group, whatever nomenclature you want to use, and then working through inviting events and then managing it therefore through a design stage and then an implementation stage and then doing it. And I think everybody also bought into the general idea that a festival can be, and also we discussed the terminology festival, gala, rally, what it should be called, and that's still an ongoing debate. But I'm going to use the word festival because I just think that's what it is. But that's not necessarily what it's going to be called in the long term. But the basic idea that a festival embraces a 1,000 different media channels, if you like, and you know, different kinds of events, doing all sorts of different things. And I made reference to Marshall McLuhan. And now I don't know whether anybody here knows about Marshall McLuhan, but he was a pundit in days of yore. I think 1960 he was quite famous, a media guru, and he coined the term "the medium is the message," and it captures exactly the point that I am trying to put forward with this idea, is that there is no best channel for communicating a complex idea. They've all got their shortcomings, and they all influence the message and how it's perceived and received. One of the beauties of a festival is it is a spectrum of different types of communication channels all happening that allow you to reach the widest possible audience. And I think there is clearly there's an artistic and cultural thing going on here, but there's also all sorts of other things like farm tours and all sorts of and various and talks, and it's a wide range of different things. So how we do it, when we do it, that was also something that was discussed. Should it be 2026? Would it be better to stand back a bit and go for 2027? That was also discussed. I'm a bit on the fence with that. I think we ought to continue down the path we're on at the moment with a view to 2026, but I am increasingly of the view that it would be better and we'd do a better job if we took a longer run up to this and did it in 2027. I'm like I say, I'm on the fence, and I think further consultation is necessary before that decision is made. So that's basically where it's at. We've been through that process, and then I think the next step will be to come back to this to this exec for the September meeting with a more concrete proposal as to how to take it forward.
Presumably that would include the funding lines as well at that point.
Yes, I think certainly we want to look at the outline amounts that needed in order to be able to start this thing, because in the end, whatever funds come from the council, it will never be enough to fund a thing like this. So
no, and I think you indicated you were looking for external sponsorship as well, didn't you?
Okay, so we need to be looking for arts council bids, possible community lottery community funding bids, crowdfunding, business sponsorship. There's also ticket sales that have to be. So there has to be, in order to be able to come back to the exec with something that makes sense, a kind of a business plan, basically, that looks at the likely costs. There will be estimates at this point, but and for you to consider whether you can support it or not, basically. So, but that's basically where things stand currently. And like I say, there was an overwhelming support for the general. I think Jane, who Jane Nichols, Sustainable South Hams, who facilitated that day, she reckoned if you wanted to put it in a scale from 0 to 10, that it was a 9 out of 10 support for the idea and the methodology that was being proposed.
Okay, thank you. Nikki, did you have your hand up?
I did.
Yes, sorry, Councillor Hopwood. Go on.
Yeah, I think you're always going to get support from an audience that's you're speaking to, that's in. I don't know if the word "into" this sort of thing is the right idea, because we all support climate change and biodiversity. It's how we get the message out, and I feel this report's been a little bit misleading, because actually the recommendation is a note, and the note does not say specifically about the festival. It says developing effective partnerships and promoting behavioural change. So it isn't into, because I thought, I'll wait to hear about the note and what the note is, because I quickly skimmed through here and I only saw paragraph 2.3 say something about the festival. I'd completely missed the executive summary 1.3. So I think this is one of the worst reports I've ever seen to note a report, because there's nothing in the report to note. It just makes no sense to me at all, this report of noting for nothing. So what I will say, noted, but what I would do say is you, whoever you may be, had a meeting with interested parties on Tuesday. Of course, they're going to all be supported because they're all interested parties. I think, and I still go down the route for this festival, if that's the only thing within this note we're talking about, although it says other partnerships, so I'd like to know the other ones as well. So I say, what the test for the festival being supported by the whole of the South Hams was that when Councillor Birch went to all the towns and parishes and heavily promoted this festival, and only a handful came back with funding, committed funding. And I think that just shows how many actually towns and parishes are uninterested in this festival. So I wait to see the comprehensive report rather than this report about the festival. But I would like to know developing effective partnership and promoting behavioural changes. That's what the note says. The work has been undertaken. So leave the festival to one side. What work has been done around climate change and biodiversity in respect of developing effective partnerships and promoting behavioural changes? Because if that's the note I'm supporting, I want to know more than one thing that's been going on. Thank you.
John, would you like to?
Not really, but I will.
No. Well, before you do, then let me just talk about the report. I think the thing to say about the report, Nikki, is that you are absolutely right in the sense that it is not it doesn't nail down like normal reports exactly what's going on. And I think one of the reasons for that is very simply because John's had Councillor McKay's had a meeting with interested parties, and one of the purposes of that meeting was to decide whether a festival or a summit, or call it what you will, might be an effective way forward in terms of promoting effective partnerships and behaviour change. So the officers couldn't write "this is about a festival" in that report, because it might well have been that it was decided that a festival wasn't the right way. There was a different option. So the report is deliberately open. And it only happened this week, exactly. So it's timescales. But I think what you've been reassured is that in September you'll have a comprehensive report. And I think, Councillor McKay, you said which would come with a business plan as well, which I think is what you always asked for when we previously had the festival report. So I'm hoping that will assuage your concerns.
Thank you. That's why you're leader and I'm not. You took words out of my mouth.
Right, good. Okay, excellent. Right, I think we'll end there then, shall we? We can all go home. I know we have Nadine and then we have Jackie. Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you. So this report has gone through a few guises before it's gotten here today. In our previous discussions, we were hoping that the consultation that happened with Sustainable South Hams was more around how do we best reach the people we're currently not reaching about changing their behaviour towards climate positive behaviour. And after attending the 2 sessions that happened this week, the question in the room was, do you want a festival? Not how do we best reach the people for behaviour change. And I am looking forward to seeing what report comes back from Sustainable South Hams and the officers in the room, because it was not my feeling in the room that it was 90% people saying, yes, let's have a festival. There was a lot of noise about, there's a lot of things happening already, let's tack on to that and meet those people where they're at. And also pushing back until 2027 because things are already getting booked up. So I am interested to see the reports when they come through.
Thank you, Councillor Dommett. Councillor Hodgson.
So I attended both sessions on, I think it was Tuesday this week, and I thought they were very positive. And I think, you know, it's a real commendation that we've been working with Sustainable South Hams to actually make those links and partnerships. But there were other people in the room actually who were just from parish and town councils who wanted to just find out. So it, you know, there is, every time anything like this happens, it is reaching out into people perhaps that aren't necessarily our, you know, what broadly be described as the low-hanging fruit. But what was in the room was actually a lot of the agencies who can actually bring something into this. So it was a really good piece of work to actually bring together the people with similar questions about, and it was very much about co-creating. So it is very much at the early stages, as you've said, John. And I think it's really important that we recognise the value of that, because bringing people forward means they take ownership of what's going on, and it'll make it, so where last year I think it was great what happened last year, but and a disappointment to a lot of people it didn't take forward as a festival. But equally I think the fact that we just sort of like started, like, I think we went in with big boots, I was asking everybody to contribute without them understanding what it was all about, I think was a deterrent, whereas this actually will bring people forward because there'll be lots of really good ideas. And, you know, that sort of early burgeoning of people being invited, they can't make it, but they say, well, I'd love to come back on Saturday and things like that. This is a good start, and I think it was a really good session. Thank you.
Councillor Ake.
Thank you. Various members will know that I've had reservations about some aspects of this, but to an extent those answered, particularly in Councillor McKay's report back from what happened on Tuesday. I think I share with Councillor Hopwood the concern that if we only, you know, it's a bit like one of those logic puzzles where some people can only say yes and some people can only say no, and what question do you ask them? If we are only asking the question of people who say yes, then the answer will be yes. And so I do share that concern in the long term, but I think at this stage you can't actually move things forward unless you talk to the people who are interested and do have some skin in the game in one way or another. So I think it's important to recognise that these are early steps, I think, and that may shape our thinking about the time frame. And like Councillor Hopwood, I think it's important that it is then confronted by a broader sample of stakeholders who might, you know, who are a mixture of people who say yes and people who say no. Yeah, so on the whole, I think it's too early to jump on this for saying for not talking to a wide enough group of people, because we can't get to a place where we talk to a wide enough group of people until we have something to talk to them about. So to that extent, I share other members' views that I look forward to the report in September or whenever it will come to us.
September. Councillor Hancock.
I was going to ask a question about what the proposition was to put to that Councillor McKay mentioned to attendees at these events earlier in the week, but I think Councillor Dommett has answered that question, because I was curious to know whether they were attendees who were asked about how can we best promote behaviour change, but it seems that that was already answered for them. I think for me, what I would be looking forward to in the report, and I think the sort of the how I feel about it, and whether I think I could support it, is actually what will be produced. What is produced? Excuse me. Does it have a clear strategy for how behaviour change will happen through the process recommended? How will it engage with people who do not usually engage with this sort of thing. For me, that is the benchmark on how I will have to judge it, because what I don't want to see, I suppose, is a festival, because that's what it is, like, you know, that is aimed at and appealing to people like myself, who will go and take part in such things and bring my family and we'll have a lovely time. But, you know, I don't think we should be talking to me about these sorts of issues, because I'm already convinced about the existential threat that is posed by climate change. And I think what we need to be doing as a council, if we're engaging in the space, is having a really clear strategy for doing that, for engaging in behaviour change for people who aren't like me, and that for me will be the you know, what I will be looking for in the strategy.
You can. Thank you, Councillor Hancock. Yes, Councillor McKay.
One of the things that was talked about was the what the National Landscapes are doing with their Life on the Edge project, and part of that was they did a show, and this is NDP that actually put on this show through. They were commissioned by Dartmoor Arts through. It was a chain of command, but in the end, NDP did it, and it was about the robber fly. And its life cycle, and it was a circus event, pretty much, with music and acrobatics and all sorts of things about the life of a robber fly, which is an endangered species. And from talking to Nikki of National Landscapes, she was adamant that it was a hugely successful. They're doing it in Plymouth, I think, possibly. They might have already done it now, but they did it down down towards where Julian lives. I can't remember the name of it, but and also, well, that sort of neck of the woods down there. Anyway, out in the sticks of South Devon, and also in Torbay, and they had big audiences, relatively speaking, and. Apparently, lots of people came that didn't know anything about the robber fly, and they went away. They had a good time. People that were not slightest bit into nature and things like that, they just came along for the event, and they went away and they Googled it when they got home, because I don't know that she had a feedback mechanism, and people learnt about the life of a robber fly. And my message at the beginning of this day on Tuesday was, the way to get to people to think about nature and to help protect it and nurture it is to become enthralled by it. And one way of enthralling people is through the medium of all sorts of medium. And this is why I come back to this whole business of the medium is the message, and you need to have to look at a whole spectrum of different channels of communication, and then you'll reach people that suits their particular way of receiving that sort of information. So you shouldn't just sort of try and have a thing about like the robber fly thing. I mean, I also talked about the oil beetle. I mean, I discovered the oil beetle just recently. I did a video of it when I was out for a walk. I took it home, not it, but the video, and I identified it, or at least my wife did, because she's good at this sort of thing, and then discovered the life cycle of thing, which is an extraordinary life cycle, and that sort of thing can be turned into an epic play, because if you go through that life cycle, it's unbelievable how that ever evolved is an interesting question in itself. But so telling stories like that through murals on walls, through events, through music, it's just a way of engaging people with nature alongside all sorts of other activities that don't actually fall into the arts thing, but just going off on. I've been to talks where there's a young chap that talks about soil, and he got a room full of children chanting amoeba. now, and they were all chanting Amoeba, all these children, and so I can imagine you could do that and get children chanting Amoeba and do it with a bit of descant, and wow, you've got something there that will make people laugh and they'll learn. It's that whole range of possibilities that a festival brings, and I think it's really important. We've got people like, I've just read in the news this morning about I think it's Durham have ditched their climate change emergency because it's now run by Reform. You've got what's the deputy leader called of Reform that has now issued a letter to the energy company. Sorry. Tice, yes, just a letter to the energy companies saying, don't invest because the mandate is going to be removed from you if we get into power. There are all these challenges surrounding us, and I think one of the beauties of a festival is it is a way of getting a message out there and getting people to think about these things. And as a corollary to that, you will get behaviour change. It's not something that you set out to do as a target. We need behaviour change and measurable KPI associated with it. It's a corollary. It's something that will happen as a result of. Anyway, so I just wanted to make those points because from what I was hearing, I'm not entirely clear that was clear.
I think you've made your points, but I think you've also heard some feedback on what members are hoping to see in September as well. So I think in that regard, that's been quite constructive. I don't propose to have any more conversation about that. You need to.
Just one more thing before, because I have discovered the dung beetle, because a chap came out to my yard for some manure and he said we had dung beetles, so he gave me the life history of a dung beetle. So see, we do learn these things. But on a serious note, we have been talking about this festival for God knows how long now. It has cost this council £40,000. I was told by the chief executive, and we were all told that we have lost £40,000 talking about this festival so far. So I hope that the talking from now on until we get to a decision is free of charge.
I did indeed say that figure, but whether that was the accurate figure, that was the figure I'd been told at the time. And I'm looking to the finance director to give me the definitive answer, which we will get you before the end of the meeting. We've certainly spent money on it.
Yes, exactly. And the money we have spent, we got nothing for. So I hope that from now on we're free of charge speaking, so we don't waste any more council taxpayers'
I do
money.
hear you, Councillor Hopwood, but sometimes councils put forward schemes that do cost money that don't come to fruition, and I won't mention Aldi and Ivy Bridge because that would be unkind, so we'll move on. On that note, I shall say cheerio to you. Members, we're happy to note, because it is a noting exercise.
Yeah.
So noted? Yeah. Thank you very much. Item 14, Waste and Recycling Service Update. I gather you're going to introduce that one, Councillor Hodgson.
Thank you, yes. Yeah, I'm really pleased to present this. I'll be co-presenting it with Councillor Brazil, because obviously we share some elements of this. But I just wanted to sort of give some bit of an overview on this. I mean, there's a very comprehensive set of reports here, and so it narrates really clearly where we've come from, 2 or 3 years ago when things were looking pretty difficult. I mean, we all sat in plastic bubbles and talked about how to deal with a company that was where we were actually making a bit of a mess of our waste and recycling, because it was outsourced, and now we've insourced it as the new Angela Rayner term. So we're back in-house with it, and I think, it really shows how much real work has gone in, and careful, considered and thoughtful work has gone into making sure we now have a really good recycling collection service, and it's to be welcomed. We've increased our the amount of recycling that we're doing, and it's up against really quite difficult background, because the thing about waste, and it was mentioned in one of the earlier points in this meeting, it was about, we should be doing better and this, that and the other. Waste actually is a really fickle thing. It's really fickle in terms of, as we came out of COVID, so many people were starting to do so much online purchasing, which suddenly, pushed up huge volumes of cardboard being expected to be collected and sorted out by us. It's meant that people are, we know that there's a huge food waste problem, which despite, the current sort of problems with people sort of finding it hard to make ends meet, it's extraordinary the amount of food waste that we have. And the fact that people have had to get kind of used to a new system, and that the seagulls help themselves every now and then as well, which doesn't help the matters. So this is a comprehensive report because it doesn't just look at our waste collection service from the households, but it also looks at what we're doing with commercial waste. It also looks at how we're treating our streets. And I think it's been, gives a really good overview of what is actually a really good professional team working really well. And I wanted to make that point. The other thing I would say is about the 3 years waste and recycling strategy going forward. Again, as we all know, we're up against it with LGR. We don't really know where we're going or who we're going to be partnered up with, whether we're going to have a sort of like a bigger sort of backdrop like we do at the moment with Devon County Council kind of doing the policy and a lot of those recycling centres and us being slightly separate, or how that's going to sort of fall out. So I think this actually has given us a lot of really good information, because it's done what I really asked for and wanted, which was to see a review of and a bit of comparative stuff. If we went down, for example, looking at waste recovery facilities, or whether we sort of how we work with other councils. So I think the information is there, and so it gives us a really good starting point for some of those conversations and thoughts, but at the same time makes the case that where we are at the moment is probably about the best way to keep going forward, because there's no point in changing now if we don't know where we're going to be in a couple of years' time with those alliances. And I think what it also, it talks about, the weaving in of some of the other stuff we've done, which is like the community composting, which I must say I'm very proud of. And I think, the fact we've been working with another group, Sustainable South Hams, who we also know through what's going on with climate and biodiversity, it's giving us that link into a lot of people, but also to well-informed groups, community groups that can actually really help us as well. So I think it's brokering a lot of those really good relationships. In terms of the opportunities for commercial waste, I think that's fantastic, and that's something I'd really like us to see. And not least of which actually is, again, the benefits that could be to our town centres, because I know from the point of view of Totnes Town Council, there's been a lot of concern. For example, there's been some arson going on recently, not necessarily in the town, but where we've got a lot of collection of waste underneath some places like the Butterwalk, where you've got timber frame buildings in adjacency. It's actually something that really needs to be looked at. And I think if we've got more of a grip on it ourselves, rather than the wider commercial sector, who are kind of, in my view, not doing us great favours by dumping big bins of recycler on the footpaths, I think there's an opportunity there for win-win. So I just finally want to just say, and I know Julian will probably say something about this too, is that I'm very sorry that we're losing Sarah. Sarah's done an absolutely fantastic job, holding our hands as we had to pursue going through difficult times at the beginning of COVID, and with the company that was, failing to deliver. And now that we've moved forward into in-house and bringing that back into a really good place, and I'm sorry she's going, but I do actually really wish her well on the other side of the world. So I'm very sorry to be losing you, Sarah. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Did you want to say anything about the report, Sarah? No? In which case, Councillor Brizzo.
Yeah, no, thank you. First of all, I'd just like to echo what Jackie said about the report, and also, absolutely, you should be proud of what you've achieved in community composting. I mean, I think that's a great step forward, and I hope all Southampton residents should be, and all power to your elbow to get some more schemes up and running. So thank you for that. What we probably don't, people. I've always said that the district council basically was a waste collection company that did a bit of planning on the side, and that waste was crucially important to everything that we did. And I wanted to see a Rolls-Royce waste collection service, and I think we've got pretty close to that. And it, as we saw with the privatised company, it's not easy to deliver those services in an area like ours. And what I think we should be proud of as a council is the fact that we brought it in-house and we delivered it. In a that change, that management change and change of system, we did it, and I think that we should all be incredibly proud of it. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the public as well, who have stuck with us in the sense that they you know, they wanted to recycle and they are recycling, and and hopefully we can support them to recycle even more. So, and of course reduce waste. So thank them. I think we should also thank our staff, our operatives out there. They are the face of the council. They are the people that most people in the South Hams relate to as the district council, because they're the ones that they see and they're the ones that come and see them every week. And I have to say, the anecdotal evidence I get is that so many of them go above and beyond what they have to, and they are a credit to us and to the council. So I'd like to thank the staff for everything that they do. And finally, of course, and it is an end of an era. Hang on a sec.
If only it was always that easy.
Just like that.
It is. Yeah, I'm back again. It is an end of an era because Sarah is leaving us, and I think she has been an absolutely fantastic officer for us and everything that she's done. And Stuart, there are some big shoes to fill. Let me tell you that. But I would like to take this opportunity. Look, trying to get flowers in Totnes on a Thursday morning, it's not easy, but I'm sorry that I missed it. But I'd just like to give these to you, Sarah, as a small token of my massive thanks of everything that you have done for the council, the administration and the residents of the South Hams, because not many people could have done what you did, but you did it, and you did it with aplomb. So thank you very much, and like Jackie, best of luck in Australia. All right, here you are.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you for doing that. I don't think I need to add very much on that, Sarah. Julian said it all, but it was a really tough place we were in, and we're not in that tough place anymore. So you can sit on a beach somewhere and think about the fact that we're not in a tough place because of an awful lot of work that you did with your team to get it right. So thank you very much. Nadine.
Sorry, not to take away from the Sarah session.
Please ask questions. We're here for that as well.
I do have queries and requests, please. Now that we do have it in hand, thanks to Sarah. Jackie, you also have the hat at county for waste. Previously, we had composting available at recycling centres. I'm putting in a request for that to make a comeback. And I'm happy to see that we are now repairing white goods and being able to sell them on. Could we look at adding more community initiatives both at our level and at county level, including things like repair cafes at recycling centres, or trying to reduce waste that ends up needing to go through our whole process anyway via clothes swaps, seed swaps, book swaps. There's an initiative called PackShare, which will connect people who have got lots of cardboard waste with people who need cardboard packaging to send out their wares. So could we be doing promotion on that front now that we've got the other stuff in hand? It would be great to add to the efforts.
Can I answer that, Chair? Yeah. So I absolutely agree. I've actually already asked about the Ivory Bridge site as to whether the area around that is available potentially for community composting, because I know that there's interest in Ivory Bridge to look at that. There's a little bit of reluctance going on at the moment because of LGR, because people don't know quite where they're going, and you could start a process and then find, because 3 years is actually a relatively short time when you go for planning permission and things, which you obviously have to have. But that said, I think what would be really useful, if I could ask you to just set out what you've just described and send it to me as an email, because that puts power to my elbow, with the officers, because then we can see where it's coming from on a local basis. And I know that you've got a credible track record down at in Ivory Bridge with the Makers Muse and things. And, I think those are the kind of things that give good example that, it's based on facts and what's happened in the past, rather than just somebody's often very good idea, but you've got a lot more behind that, so that would be really helpful. But I absolutely agree, and I think those kind of comprehensive offers really get people thinking, a little bit of immersion. They go with one thing and think, oh, hang on, I didn't think of that, and it really helps people to change their behaviour to reduce, and so we can get up to some of our better targets for recycling. Thank you.
Sorry,
Sarah.
one thing I
Oh,
forgot
sorry,
to
I
mention.
think Sarah wanted to come in as well.
Okay.
Yeah, apologies. I just want to expand on your point, Councillor Hodgson. So within this strategy, I think it's item 3, it talks about expanding community reuse, recycling initiatives. So some of those action points in there will cover off some of that around working with the other partners.
Sorry, I forgot to also mention that previously at Makers Muse we had a kit available via Recycle Devon, so that anybody who wants to be hosting their own clothes swaps, that kit is now at Fullerton House for people to be able to access, to be able to do clothes swaps in their communities.
Denise, Councillor Callahan.
Thank you. Yes, it's good to hear about the continuous improvement, and congratulations to the team and Sarah. Good luck to Sarah. Congratulations and good luck. Without wishing to be a Debbie Downer again, I do want to steer you to street cleaning, right to the right at the end. Oh no, I hear you say. Right at the end, I do get. I'm sure perhaps others do as well. Get comments from my town council in Kingsbridge about this, and it would be good to hear a bit more about what we're doing. I think it's 7.5, 6, and 7 about the trials underway in Totnes and Dartmouth. To hear about what's happening with that. When are the new mechanical road sweepers happening, and the sweeper schedules, which are currently under construction. So it'd be good to hear a bit about that, if that could be done.
Probably one for you, Stuart.
Yep. Thanks for the question. So yes, we have started the improvement on the street cleansing service. So a couple of updates. The sweepers were ordered and all to be delivered by September. We're expecting to have the first sweeper in August. We've also employed an additional sweeper and driver for this month to try and catch up on some of the work which hadn't been done, and I think that's been started seeing some of the district and already starting to get some of the positive feedback from that work that's doing. Max Ahern is currently the manager of grounds maintenance, and he's starting to oversee this project, so he's started to put together the schedules to try and combine them as well with what we already do in grounds maintenance. We've just started the litter bin survey, so the localities team are doing the litter bin surveys of all our bins in the district so that we can review the best locations and make sure that we've got a replacement programme in place. We are putting together indices of how we can evaluate our level of street cleansing, so we should have something in the next quarter where we can actually manage and report on our level of street cleansing across the district, so we've actually got something we can compare performance against. And also in the new next quarter, we are looking to try and produce a litter strategy which will start to engage with the public and talk about both enforcement and education on littering. So hopefully all those will come through at the next update about the progress made on those points.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
Any more questions on the report, members? Okay.
Would you like me to move the recommendation?
Well, that was questions. Is there any debate to be had, or anyone else before you do that? Is there anyone else wants to say anything? Just make sure I haven't missed anybody. If not, no, then yes, please do.
Okay. Well, just to add in, just as the last point, is if anybody's interested in the community composting, we have an outing on the 30th of this month. It's where we're just going to go and view with the groups, go and look at some of the community composting sites. So if you want to join any of that, you'd be welcome. We're going to be visiting Hunters Moon in Dartington, Malden and Stoke Fleming. So there's 3 sites, and then I think we're going to have a drink in Malden afterwards. So just to compare notes. So that's an evening out if you fancy, because I think it gives a good illustration of what's going on, and you can get a chance to talk to the people running the sites and see the interest as well. So with that, I'll just move the recommendations that you see before you on the screen.
Julian, you seconding? Okay, all those in favour?
That's unanimous. Thank you, Leader.
Chief Executive.
Thank you, Leader. So this is don't go, Sarah. This is a member arena, but I'd like to put on record my personal thanks to you, Sarah. You are the best operations manager this organisation has had in the last 5 years, and without you, we would not have achieved the change. I'd also like to pay tribute to Steve, the Deputy Chief Exec, and I think the two of you, between you, have done a magnificent job. So I wouldn't normally intervene, but I feel I should, and thank you so much.
Well done, Andy.
Does that mean I can go as well and go to Australia as well?
Yeah. We'll buy you we'll have a whip round for a ticket later.
Okay, members, we're going to move on to item 15. Can I just remind you that the appendices to item 15 are exempt items. So although we're having the discussion in public, if you needed to refer specifically to items in the appendices, we would have to go into part 2, so just bear that in mind. And on that note, I shall go to Councillor O'Callaghan to introduce the report, please,
Yes,
for Rope Walk.
Thanks very much. Yes, there's sort of sensitive financial information in there, which is the reason for, the reason for it being exempt. Nothing sinister in there. Yes, just basically, as suggested, asking for the executive support. This is a very positive report, making progress on our council-owned site at Rope Walk in Kingsbridge, where we want to deliver 100% affordable housing, which is excellent as we have an affordable housing crisis. And the way we propose to do it is to work with a registered provider, in this case is Hastow Housing Association, who the idea is that they would deliver the houses and own and manage them. And so to effect that, we would effectively transfer the land to the Hastow Housing Association in this way. So, in effect, fulfilling our key priority of 100% affordable housing on the council site, which is a really positive thing to do. And the specifics are that 10 homes are proposed. Good news too that most are social rent, which is what is specifically, I think, needed for truly affordable housing, because we talk a lot about affordable housing and all too often it isn't affordable, especially in an area of high house prices, which Kingsbridge is. Certainly, it's close to Salcombe, so social rent is to be welcomed. And the other three would be shared ownership, and the mix would be 4 1-bed, 4 2-bed, and 2 3-bed. So I think that's very, very necessary. The housing need is pressing and acute, as the report says. This is a brownfield site, so we would work to gain grant funding, central grant funding from specifically the Brownfield Land Reserve Fund, I think it's called, which would be for sites like this, brownfield sites where it would need to be decontaminated. I think there would be costs obviously involved in that, and we would hope to gain grants to do that. There's also a separate nearby site in the same area of Rope Walk, which is also under consideration, but we're focusing on this particular site today. I think that's essentially the bones of it, really. And I don't know whether Izzy would want to say more, or we could have, if anyone's got any questions, perhaps Izzy can give a bit more detail. Obviously, as I say, the appendices are exempt for financial reasons, so say what we can if there's any questions.
Members, questions, comments? That's Brazil.
Yeah, I'd like to make some comments, if I may, Dan. First of all, can I congratulate Denise, who has tenaciously stuck with this when it has wavered. So, you know, well done you. I mean, absolutely. And obviously well done to the team, Izzy, and officers involved. But Denise particularly that's what council should do, and that's what Denise did. And hopefully this will now provide desperately needed social rented affordable housing in Kingsbridge. I think we should also add that we brought this land off Devon County Council. Looking at the papers now, as a highly inflated cost, I should add, but at least it went to the county council, which is, not a bad thing. But what I should say is that, again, this shows our commitment to using our resources, and in this case, it's an asset that we hold and has value that we have given towards achieving one of our top, if not our top priority of affordable housing for local people in our area. So, people sometimes say we're spending it in areas we shouldn't, but this I hope goes into any calculation as to what we have spent in order to achieve what we are trying to do in respect of affordable housing. So thank you.
Anyone else? Jackie, Councillor Hodgson.
Just wanted to echo my support for what's already been said, and I think this is a really good news story. And the more we can deliver 100% affordable, the more chance we can actually, ideally, for a better expression, strong arm developers to do the same. Where sometimes we get presented with ridiculously low figures. If we can do it, so can they. So yeah, I really welcome it and congratulate Councillor O'Callaghan on what she's achieved with this.
Thank you, and I welcome it too. I just, it's my turn to pour cold water, though, I'm afraid, just to a certain extent, because it is great. It is a great news, but I do think we really do need to note 2 and 3, because if the additional grant funding isn't secured, then there is a budget gap, and I just think we need to be aware of that, don't we? That it is a good news story, and that there are no problems with it as long as the grant funding is secured. If the grant funding is not secured, then I think we need to be aware that that presents us with issues. So, that isn't to take away from, it certainly has my full support, and I echo what Julian said about, the member and officers working on this, but I just think it is worth, this is one of those occasions where 2 and 3 might say note, but you really do need to note, I would suggest, because it could have potentially important ramifications. Okay, any more on that?
I don't know, Vizzy, you want to talk about the viability gap, or if you'd rather, about the possibilities, or...
I don't think there's any need, is there really? I mean,
No,
it's more, I just wanted to raise the fact that, that the noting are worth noting today. Sometimes it says notes and you don't have to worry too much about it, but this is, yeah.
Yeah, and having mentioned Izzy, I just want to thank they've done all the real hard behind the scenes graft, so I should, of course, and I must thank them for their hard work.
Well, you've got the mic, do you want to...
And also, just as an aside, I will move the recommendations 1, 2 and 3.
Thank you very much. Second, Councillor Hancock, thank you very much. All those in favour?
Unanimous. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. Okay, item 16, reports of bodies. We've got one report from an outside body, which is the Salcombe Harbour Board meeting of the 23rd of June. And the reason why we're dealing with that one is that there is a specific recommendation, which you'll find at page 212 of your order paper, that we approve an increase of the moorings barge capital budget on the terms as set out in the published exempt agenda report, with the additional monies being funded on the terms as outlined in the published agenda report. Although I think saying where they're coming from is probably not an issue, is it? Saying where they're being funded from, I wouldn't have thought was an exempt.
It was an exempt report.
Yeah.
The details in the report if we needed to.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Yeah. So you've seen those members. So I mean, if you've got any questions, I mean, Councillor Long, as the chairman, is here. Did you want to speak to it, Councillor Long?
I think, without going into the detail, I would just commend the executive to agree this. There's been a considerable amount of work that has gone into this. I've got to thank the Harbour Master Cameron and his team, and members of the board as well, the independent members of the board, who have supported and given guidance and advice and counsel on this. And I think it is a good move, and it is just reinforcing the harbour and its ability to continue working forward, and reinforces our ability to do the work that we need to do within the harbour. Thank you.
Thank you. And I mean, just to confirm, because I don't think this should be part 2, it's my understanding that whatever monies this is costing is actually coming out of Salcombe Harbour Reserve.
This is all of the costs are coming out of the reserves of the harbour.
Yeah. That was the part of the exempt agenda item I felt probably wasn't exempt and would be useful to be shared in the public arena.
I was waiting for a nod in that direction without overstepping and being criticised by Mr. Fairburn or somebody else.
Okay, thank you. So, members, on that basis, are you happy to accept the recommendation, which I'm going to move? And if so, can I have a seconder from somebody, please? Thank you, Councillor Rake. Yeah, all those in favour of the recommendation as per the screen?
That's unanimous. Thank you, Leader.
Okay, so that only leaves us to move into part 2. I haven't got the wording, actually. It's on the screen, is it? Thank you. Okay, so I move now that in accordance with section 100 brackets A brackets 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public and press be excluded from the meeting during consideration of the following items of business in order to avoid the likely disclosure to them of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A to the Act. Could I have a proposer please to go into part 2 from somebody? Thank you, Councillor Brazil, and a seconder. Just need anybody please. Councillor Hodgson, thank you very much. Okay, all those in favour of going to part 2?
That's carried for part 2.
Thank you very much. Okay, if you cut the feed then please, Mr.